Oh, I'm supposed to link it. Oh, whoopsie. Hey, just do it. It turns out okay, even if our friends are other friends are a little late. But while we wait for the other people to arrive, I got a new guest today. Introduce yourself, new guest for today.
Okay, so I'm Colton. You can find me on Reddit at Corpral Anon, which is in my username here. I don't really have any other social media that I give out that's related to this kind of thing. I am a former young Earth creationist. I am a geology student. Currently, I'll get this out there right now. I don't have any degrees as of yet. I've got about 1.5 more before I get my bachelor's. But I do have some formal courses under my belt, and I was asked to give a presentation on geology, the geologic time scale, Earth history, and yeah, thank you for having me.
No problem. So what made you want to get into geology?
So back when I was about 13, 14, I was involved in a pretty fundamentalist church, and they had a bunch of those like creationist Answers in Genesis magazines and materials for the youth groups. And I read a lot about like Noah's flood and all the stuff that they had, and it got me tuned into geology as a whole. But then I ended up giving up that kind of belief system, but the interest stuck around. And it was mostly just like a loose interest that I'd read about all throughout high school. But towards the end, I actually started wanting to make it my career. And there he is. So yeah, that's basically what it was. As I investigated my belief system, I ended up learning just how deep of a field geology is, and that's what just drew me in further. And here I am.
Yeah, I always like learning about new things. You know, just keep my education going, no matter how, even after school, even after school just ends for me. Because
hey, always keep learning, man.
Instruction.
Oh, it worked. Okay.
Hello.
Hey.
How do?
Yes, I can hear you. A little soft, but okay.
Yeah.
Soft.
Your co-author has plugged the book in the chat already.
Oh, is he? There we go. Perfect.
Live comments. Okay.
Oh, so how are you doing in this isolationist, quarantine, pandemic world that we live in?
Me?
Yeah.
Same as usual, pretty much. The only thing that changed is classes are online.
Yeah, it's about the same. There's not a whole lot different, although I'm kind of bummed that I can't go on the field trips that were planned.
Yeah, too bad you can't have a robot go on the field trip for you. Go virtual field trip via robot.
I would go to a dig in like a hazmat suit if I had to, but no, we can't do that.
Yeah, I'm sure Erica will want to go there too. She could in the hazmat suit.
Yeah, I feel bad for her losing out on that Malaysian trip.
Yeah, my niece was going to come visit for the first time. My niece had a baby, and she's going to come visit. I was going to meet it like 2 months old now, but now I can't see it for a while longer.
Well, babies are gross anyway, so don't worry.
Yeah, they're finding out that they're most of the asymptomatic carriers, young children. So
see,
maybe,
that's my point.
Maybe you're safe.
I know they lied to us first. First it was older people, and it was like, no, never mind. 18 to 40-year-old. No, never mind. No, it's everybody.
Well, the older people are the ones who are more at risk. They're certainly more, which is coming true of any disease, but even still.
Well, I think it's because it correlates with like heart disease and other things, which are what they're finding are risk factors for dying of this virus anyways.
Well, I mean, it's SARS. It's, severe acute respiratory infection. So it's pretty rough.
That's why
Nasty for everybody.
That's why Doctor told me to stay home for a while too, because I'm also with my my asthma. I'm also kind of iffy about.
Yeah, that's a pre-existing condition. Yeah.
Yeah, you're smart to stay home.
Yeah.
I work at cash register, so I have to go out every day and deal with people.
Yeah, I had to go. Me too. If I'm feeling bad, I come back to work next week because I also work at cash registers, fast food. So because McDonald's people are essential employees to work in.
We're exposed to all these nasty people, all these filthy humans. Oh wait, sorry, I flipped a little bit.
Oh, and last but not least, someone
There she is.
who unfortunately has to be here because she's not.
I am here.
Because
I'm ready to go.
Because she can't be
Perfect.
where she wants to be. Not that she doesn't want to be here, but I know you really would like to be.
I'm excited to be here. I'm just eating some popcorn chicken while I'm here.
I mean, chicken too.
I was thinking about eating. There's probably.
Yeah, I ordered some.
I ate beforehand, so.
I'm always eating on these streams. I just can't stop myself. It makes me hungry.
Well, for the first time ever, I got slides, courtesy of Corpral Anon here.
You can just call me Colton.
Colton. He made these things and made 5 drafts of them too.
Colton's the guy with the slides.
Yeah.
I'm not usually the guy with the slides. I just thought it might be a nice change of pace.
Hey, cut yourself some slack. You're the guy with the slides today.
He slides on the sides.
Slides on the sides.
Here we go. Page number 1.
Okay, so what is geology? Geology is a scientific field which deals with the structure and makeup of the Earth, as well as the history contained within the geologic record. As a field, it has a lot of uses. All the coal, oil, precious minerals, everything that powers our civilization can owe its existence to geology, or its discovery, rather, to geology. It can even be used for studying things like volcanoes, floods, fault zones, to tell you where it's safe to build and where it isn't, how to minimize structural damage in high-risk areas, those kind of things. If it wasn't for geology, we wouldn't be here. The precious metals in our laptops, they wouldn't have been dug out of the ground. The coal that powers the power plants giving us electricity wouldn't have been mined up.
So Jackson, Erica, you had to deal with geology in your line of work, in your primates, or biology?
Oh, geology has strictly been a pet passion when I can engage it. I wish there were more rocks involved with primates, but other than the ones that the capuchins or the chimps are using to crack open whatever delectable nut they're about to eat, not so much in my field.
Everything in the ground is just dirt. I rest my case.
Thanks, Ken.
Feeling the precious paleontologic finds underneath.
I found bones in the dirt. It don't count.
Bones. Bones in the dirt. Oh man, rough.
All you can tell from them is they died.
Yeah,
They didn't have kids.
That fossil had any kids.
But it had parents, didn't it?
Oh, it hurts. Just no Kent tonight, please. Okay, so how do geologists actually read the rocks and understand what we're looking at? There are actually several principles and tools that we use to understand what we see in the geologic record. These include things like the principle of uniformitarianism, the principles of superposition, original horizontality, faunal succession, cross-cutting relationships, included fragments, lateral continuity, and Walter's law, among others. There are more these are just the most commonly cited ones in the textbook. And we'll take a look at them one by one in a little more detail here. So,
I've heard of that one before. People, I've heard them use that word a lot.
Uniformitarianism is a creationist buzzword these days. We actually, in practice, have different words for it. So it's often taught in grade school textbooks as the present is key to the past, but in reality, as you start going up through the ranks of this field, it's a little more complex.
You enter the conspiracy.
Yeah, you start entering the giant conspiracy to hide Noah's flood.
Yeah.
The early days of geology were dominated primarily by two camps, uniformitarians and catastrophists. Uniformitarians ended up dominating for several decades because in an argument between only slow causes or only fast causes, the evidence of slow causes was convincing enough. So they ended up dominating until about the 1950s. But around the 1950s, so-called Lyellian uniformitarianism was replaced by modern uniformitarianism, which the younger generation tends to just call actualism because it reflects how the Earth actually operates. Actualism abandoned the notions of relatively constant rates of processes like sedimentation and erosion. It also abandoned the principle that geologists must have modern analogs for their hypothetical depositional environment. The only things in uniformitarianism today that we assume unchanging are the laws of physics and chemistry. Literally anything else is up for grabs if you have a good evidentiary case. So creationists, if you have a model of Noah's flood that doesn't change physics and chemistry, submit it.
So that the Noah flood thing, the catastrophe thing,
Yes, they are strictly catastrophists.
I don't think I've ever met a creation. Well, maybe one or two who was not shocked by the notion that people who accept uniformitarianism actually also accept localized catastrophes, be it volcanism or whatever.
Well, it's like they want to say, well, they disproved uniformitarianism with Mount St. Helens, and it's like, well, no, I mean that's an observed process today, and it's chaotic. So yeah, we can use that.
Algorithm, the Deccan traps would also like a word.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things that drug the notion of modern analogs into the dirt, and it was just abandoned because because nobody has seen an eruption anywhere close to the scale of the Deacon Traps flood basalts. Yet we can still make hypotheses about something we've never witnessed, which we'll go into later. But
I'm excited. I'm excited to hear about these potentially dry ash beds.
So that was Deacon Trap. That was the Permian extinction, right?
At least. God knows what else it's done because it seems to be almost cyclic.
Yeah. Luckily nowadays it's in Serbia, so nobody lives in Serbia.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it clearly affects more than just Siberia. Yeah. So we're still going to have to be worried if they pop off again.
True.
It's like Yellowstone.
Yeah.
That's a little closer to home.
Yeah, just a little bit of.
Wouldn't it be hilarious in such a cosmic way if Yellowstone picked now of all times to blow its top?
Yeah, hilarious. Ha 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 ha.
I said cosmically.
Okay. So another principle we use is the principle of superposition. And this is pretty easy to understand, as the graphic shows. It just means that in an undisturbed sequence of sedimentary layers, older material tends to be found below younger material. That's just how gravity works. Now, obviously, the key word here is undisturbed. There are processes like tectonics which can flip things around and make it a very messy situation.
And all these layers were laid down. All these layers were laid down 1 year ago in the flood 4,000 years ago, right?
Well, depends on who you're talking to. You can read the Journal of Creation. I mean, they won't come out with this, but I've read articles where they say outright big swaths of the Precambrian, which look exactly like modern layers, except they lack the fossil content. They're just not open to investigation because they are miraculous ex nihilo rock. Doesn't matter that they look the same.
Yes.
It's bad. I can pull up a quote at some point if you all like for that, but that's...
Like is a relative term.
I've yet to hear a good explanation too, and Colton, we've talked about this before, but for the Archean fossils too that you find in some of the pre-flood layers.
I mean, it's weird. You want to say that all the layers got all the pre-flood rock got eroded to make the sediment for the flood rock, but you have pre-flood layers still surviving. So if that's true, where's my Precambrian mosasaur? I mean, it was swimming in the pre-flood ocean.
And I think anytime
It should have gotten buried with stromatolites. I'm just saying.
and probably the only time this is ever like mixed up is probably when the tectonic plates like move around, like
Exactly.
earthquakes or something, like mountains or something.
The god-awful cesspit of Creation Wiki will tell you there's messy layers without tectonics, but I've personally looked at their page on that, and it's absolute dog shit. It's bad.
Oh,
Are you
Literally?
implying the Creation Wiki is not a superb source method?
That color me shocked, right?
Like, well, I'm sure their journal's peer reviewed.
Well, it's by the same people who make Conservapedia, so you can't expect that much.
Oh, Andrew Schlafly or Shafly, whatever it is.
I think so.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Pretty sure they're linked together. Don't quote me on that, but I'm.
They probably are. I really wouldn't be surprised.
Okay, so another principle is the principle of original horizontality. This was what I was getting to with undisturbed and disturbed layers. Because of the laws of gravity, base and sedimentation, all strata begin relatively horizontal. There may be some flow to them, but they're generally pretty flat. So when you have strata that is not horizontal, such as this big fold here, this implies something disturbed it afterwards. We didn't really know what that was until about the 1930s, but tectonics came out to be the mechanism. I want to point something out for creationists watching. If we look at this right here, see these big stress fractures in the fold, indicating the layer was lithified before it got hit by the tectonics? Yeah, folded and fractured. This isn't a clean break. This is a clean break. This isn't a clean uninterrupted fold, which people like Snelling like to say exist. But to date, I haven't seen that many.
So have you actually been on the ground doing this stuff yet?
I have done a few field trips, but I'm in Florida, so we don't actually get to look at this.
Have you seen Florida Man?
I am Florida Man.
Oh.
I was gonna say, isn't
you-
Florida Man more like it's more like our binomial nomenclature, right? Of species of Florida men hanging out in the peninsular state.
And I want you to keep this in mind about Florida. Even though everything is shut down, all our parks, all our theme parks, everything, a gun store that I went to yesterday was considered an essential place to keep open.
Of
Oh,
course.
thank God.
Have you been to Louisiana?
Hey,
No, I haven't. I kind of wish I was.
well, all you need
I'm sorry.
for time. All you need go to Disney World. Bring one friend and one technical person to run the rides. Three of you go to ride the ride and have him.
No, I'm just gonna go there and culture the everything that people have touched. I want to see how much Corona I can get in about 20.
Oh
20
God.
and have the guy run the ride for you. Follow you from ride the ride.
You know, if you stand in the shower and scream, it's almost like riding a water ride. So
It's just Splash
Do I
Mountain.
have to keep my clothes on? Because Splash Mountain is uncomfortable. I hate that. I hate it when certain friends who are watching also make us do that first instead of waiting till the end of the graduation party.
Hey, there's nothing more fun than walking around a theme park with wet socks.
Oh.
Well, if it's the summer, hopefully, time you get done, you dry off.
No, then you just have warm wet socks. Which is
Oh. Boo.
That's why you bring sandals or with.
That's true. That's the play. That's the better play.
So again, another principle we use are the principles of faunal succession, which refers to the observation that layers can be correlated by fossil content. Specifically, we use these things called index fossils. These little ammonites right here, these pretty little polished fossils, they don't look like that in the field, but they are a good example of an index fossil. Index fossils are limited stratigraphically to very narrow sections of the geologic column, and I have a typo there that I see that I missed. Dang it. These little ammonites, for example, they share an unbroken global sequence throughout most of the Triassic and Jurassic. You can go anywhere in the world, and you will see these same little ammonites separated by their suture shape in their shells across the globe. Past that, global oceans disappeared as a result of tectonic movement, and so you started getting regional variations. But even then, it's unbroken within those regions.
And that's probably where they bring up the circular reasoning thing.
Except it's a direct observation.
You know, the thing about index fossils, I've surveyed the creationist literature on this. There is one article, I guess technically two, on index fossils in all of creationism.
Oh, let me ask you, are you citing the one by Woodmarapp? The tectonically associated bioprovidences idea? Because he
No.
tried to debunk it. Okay, I can get you
I've
that
seen that one
later on.
Ooh.
Okay, it was bad. So
Exciting.
what Woodmarapp did was he tried taking a bunch of geologic maps to figure out whether or not there was a global correlations of index fossils. Because if you know anything about Woodmarapp, he hates the idea of a geologic column. You mention that phrase to him, he starts screeching.
Right.
That and bristlecone bones, right?
Yes. So Kevin Hankey actually took him to task on an old Talk Origins post that you can't find, and I'm pretty sure I have the only copy left of it in a one readable form.
Have you done like the what is it called, the Wayback for it?
No, I actually had to dig through the Talk Origins, like it's the Google form. I had to go way back into 1999 to find it.
Oh,
it was, and then I had to copy and paste it. It was all jagged and all sorts of nonsense, and I had to manually put it back together, like putting shredded stuff back taped together. It was bad. But what I found out was that Woodmarapp had mislabeled tons of index fossils. So he would call a Jurassic ammonite Triassic. He got a lot of stuff wrong. His own charts, according to Hankey, didn't even agree with his argument. It was
me shocked.
Yeah, it was awful. And if you've never heard of tectonically associated bioprovidences or TABs, it's not good, man.
Is that like his ecological zonation thing? Is there anything like that?
So Woodmarapp figured out that ecological zonation doesn't do anything to solve the creationist fossil segregation issue.
We have one.
So what he did was he said that God, for whatever reason, set up tectonically associated bioprovidences, that's the name, where different groups of organisms globally were situated. And for some reason, God wanted the ammonites the trilobites and fauna to always, without exception, get subducted first. He literally states in his thesis that God set it up in such a way that we would get the order we see.
That's fantastic. I love
it. God always wanted, first you get your trilobites, then you get your dinosaurs, then you get everything else. And he didn't want that order broken. I don't know why. It was really dumb. Hankey challenged him to test it in like the Williston Basin or somewhere else, which I mentioned later on in this, and he refused to do so. Of course.
Well, you know, God loved the tabulate corals until the Permian, and then he just got tired of them and killed them all off.
No,
That's because elephants can run faster than dinosaurs up a mountain. That's why.
I mean, have you ever seen magnolias running? They're so fast.
the poor tabulate corals, they got usurped by our modern scleractinians, right? I miss the other tabulates. They're so them and the ammonites and our little cute paleo guys hanging out in the past. I miss them.
Yeah, me too. But Jackson, I can send you that if you're interested.
Oh yeah, definitely. RJ, I would love to read that.
Okay. Does RJ have like his email up on the book that you guys have? Because I have a copy of it.
RJ, put your email in the live chat.
Oh wait, no, I think I have emailed him before. Never mind.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. I do have it then. All right.
Oh yeah, it reminds me. Yesterday I got paid and I got the Kindle version of the book. I don't know if it's the same version as the paperback, but it was $20 cheaper. So
I might buy the physical version just because.
Oh, I have it. Yeah, it's very good. Oh yeah, and the Ruggos corals, I forgot about those. Yeah, it's very nice to have. You know, whether you're reading it or using it to bash people in the face, it works great both ways. So
yeah, it looks like a nice hefty piece of literature.
I love you too, Mr. Downer. Thank you.
So what's this cross-cutting thing?
So The principle of cross-cutting relationships it's pretty easy to understand. Basically, a rock unit cannot be younger than something that cuts into it. So, for example, you've got the Surprise Canyon Formation Paleo Valley here, which is carved into the Redwall limestone. The Redwall obviously cannot be younger than the channel that got carved into it. Similarly, another example that's commonly used in textbooks are things like clastic dikes. Obviously, a dike cannot be younger than a rock cannot be younger than the dike that cuts through it.
That include mountains too.
Yeah. So basically, the mountain cannot be older than the rock. That would make no sense.
Yes.
We've also got your
Is my answer.
surprise, your classic surprise.
I love this. I love this formation. Okay, I'm gonna have a whole blog post about it soon, like a whole detailed thing. But
No, I know that one's your.
Do it.
it's my favorite. I love it so much, and I get into that later a little bit. So then you get the principle of included fragments. Thank you for having the updated version. I felt like an idiot for forgetting this up until an hour ago.
Yeah, sent me like 5 different drafts of this.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. So the principle of included fragments, it references things called clasts, which are fragments of older rock that different types of rock tend to have included within them. So these may range from little individual grains to boulders, which can span many meters across. And what it basically states is that a rock unit containing fragments of pre-existing rock, such as a breccia or a conglomerate unit, cannot be, that's a typo. Or no, sorry, it's not. I'm stupid. It cannot be older than the fragments locked up within it. So obviously you can't have a boulder break off and get reincorporated into a younger rock. The boulder has to be broken off first, and then the sediment fills in around it, and that's what locks the clast into the conglomerate.
Like from a glacier or something?
Glaciers are one thing, but a good example of this is alluvial gravel. Or actually with the breccia here, which is sharp and angular, meaning it wasn't transported very far, you would look of like talus or scree, which, I mean, if you go to the Grand Canyon and you see the angular slopes, it's everywhere. I mean, it's just broken rock chunks that fall off, and then they just get buried in, filled in by sediment by the Colorado River because they're too heavy to be carried.
When you said scree, that reminded me of like Adventure Time when Bubblegum Princess says scree, and the giant goose comes and gets her.
Another word for scree is alluvium, but I like scree better.
It's like a war screech. Scree!
I know.
Yes.
See, I picture.
At this point, you're probably wondering, what am I doing here?
I picture most creationists just as Earl Lemongrab. Anytime you bring up anything even remotely related to dating, unacceptable.
Unacceptable. Yeah.
So then you got the principle of lateral continuity, which means that undisturbed layers are expected to be laterally continuous for some distance before they end up pinching off into other sediments. This is most easily seen with like a canyon or a river carving into the earth. You'll generally see the same stratigraphic order of rock on both sides, and they'll be linked just vertically.
Huh. So like Grand Canyon, for example?
Yeah, so like with the Grand Canyon, when it cuts through, the Redwall limestone is found equally on both sides. So you're not going to have like one part of the Redwall up here and then another all the way down here. It just doesn't work like that.
Okay, that maybe
at least in most cases. Sometimes there are exceptions, but they're very rare.
I was wondering about that because they talk about the updraft? What's it called?
Uplift? Thinking of uplift? Yeah. Tectonics can once again start screwing up with things, but that's, again, keyword here is undisturbed. So usually when you see that it's different, that means that there's tectonic activity in the area.
That runs very contra to the creationist idea where you just kind of you just give it a good eyeball and you're like, that looks about right. Geologists don't actually use indicators or markers or measurements or have any rules. We don't do that. We don't do that in science.
It's like this one paper by Ord on creation.com that I read where he was trying to address unconformities. Love you, Paul. And Ord said something like, "Oh, sure, there are some channel cuts in the different layers of the Grand Canyon, but they're rare. They're almost never seen." What was the reference? Ord's personal observations. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't trust a non-geologist to look at layers that are in similar color anyways, and then also covered by snow and talus and all sorts of other stuff that makes it hard to see, because other people who have done detailed observations have found tons of channel cuts everywhere.
That's very reminiscent of that one post. I forget who it was, Colton, on Debate Evolution, but when the conversation that Tompkins had, actually I think it was Gene, where he references his own paper's results that isn't out yet to validate his claims.
Yeah, that's kind of it's always kind of funny. I kind of smirk whenever I see in a paper like personal communication. It's like.
That sounds like it's not investigatable.
I mean, there are times when I think personal communication can be appropriate.
Well, sure, yeah.
For example, like there was one that I was actually just researching this issue a few days ago. There's this place in Pakistan called the Salt Range, and there are sometimes, back in the 1940s at least, people were finding Eocene-aged stuff in Precambrian salt. Cambrian salt. And it was eventually ruled to be contamination. And this creationist on the subreddit just started screaming, "Oh, that paper that you cited, they only say that it was contamination because it was contrary to evolution." And I'm like, dude, the paper itself says that the only identifiable thing was a modern gnat. They had the actual original authors who found this Eocene stuff didn't actually provide evidence it was from the Eocene. It wasn't even fossilized. And salt can incorporate stuff. But no, apparently you can just read the paper, dismiss it as nonsense, call it a stupid poo-poo excuse, and that saves your argument.
That sounds like some Mark Armitage, nonsense.
No, that was Paul. That was Paul.
That was that kind of reminds me of the Roraima pollen, where they have like the pollen grains in this ancient, or are they modern pollen grains in like an ancient?
Right. Yeah.
I did send this live stream to Kevin Henke, and he wrote an excellent article on that. So hi Kevin, thank you for debunking the Roraima pollen thing. Again, I can send you guys that article if you haven't found it already.
Absolutely.
Website. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
Before we move on, you might want to jump this canyon.
Oh yeah, true. If you can, if you got anybody got a motorcycle, a hog, I believe is the cool way to call it.
Oh my god, no.
Can you jump it in a single bound with your underpants on your head though?
True. You gotta have a flag, little tassel on the back too. It doesn't
So then we have Walter's Law, which basically states that, and this mostly refers to marine transgressions and regressions. It basically states that when a depositional environment migrates laterally, sediments from one depositional environment end up lying on top of another. So as you can see, like on time 1 here at the bottom, you got your limestone, your shale, and your sandstone. And then as the ocean moves up onto the land, in some areas, the shale the limestone starts overlapping the shale, and the shale starts overlapping the sand, and then that continues. And then you'll generally see the reverse pattern as the ocean recedes. And Walter's Law is very useful for figuring out facies modeling and stuff like that.
Named after a person, or
yeah, it's named after somebody named Walter. His name is actually escaping me right now, and I'm sorry I didn't put that in the slide. Yeah, sorry about that. I can't remember. I genuinely can't.
Yeah. And if you want to know about laws, go check me and Jackson's episode of peer-reviewed theories, where he talks about laws and stuff like that.
You mean, wait, did I do one on that? I thought Tony Reed did one on it.
You both were at the same
Oh,
time.
that's right. Oh, you're talking about the live stream that we did. Yeah. I was thinking of like the video, just the video. My bad.
Yeah.
Johannes Walther is his name. I just looked it up real quick. It completely escaped my mind.
Sounds fake.
Yeah, me, Tony, and Jackson last year did a podcast on theories, laws, peer-reviewed journals, and all that stuff.
Well, it can't be fake because this is the exact stuff that Tim Clary needs to determine how flood megasequences formed.
Oh, there's that word again. Mega sequences.
We love
It's called a
mega.
cryptonic sequence, Clary. I'm sorry. We have our own term for it.
Yeah, it's we actually, when RJ and I were writing about that in the book, and because I would usually like draft the chapter and then RJ would go and edit things, and so I was like, mega sequences. I'm not finding anything on the internet, and eventually I realized because it's made up. It's like
Yeah, I could literally find, when I was looking at it like a few years ago, I could only find one talk rational form argument about it. That's it, because it's only used by Clary,
right?
Or like why evolution is poopy.net or something.
But now you can make the Ken Ham joke. There's a book.
You see,
there's a book for that. Yeah,
We got a book.
We've got a book.
Yeah, you know when you've got like pseudoscience specific terminology that you're traipsing into unknown territory, you know? That's never a good sign.
I will say though, when they ask you if it's divinely inspired, just say yes. They can't prove it's not.
I had a revelation. I had a bunch of revelations.
You are no different than what was her name? The lady who inspired McCarty Price, like the same lady who made the lie about Darwin recanting.
Oh, Lady Hope.
Right.
Yeah,
Lady Hope.
I'm pretty sure she was the same one who had visions of Noah's flood and started all that.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. I'm not familiar.
I think it was the same lady. I might be wrong, but I know they were Adventists. It was real weird.
Yeah, Lady Hope. She, that was a whole thing, and even his like religious family members were like, "This is utter bullcrap." Come on,
he was not here. We were here when he died.
Yeah. His kids were like, we wish he done it, but he didn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was crazy. It's like, because they'll do that. You know, that probably was the first start of the they converted on their deathbed. Hitchens and Stephen Hawking and everybody else.
Did y'all ever see the horrible comments people started leaving when Hitchens died?
It was recapitulated when Hawking died too.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I remember those. I did a video about that.
We had a guy from creation.com on the Debate Evolution subreddit. His name is Paul Price, and he commented on a different post that the world would have been better off if Stephen Hawking had been left mute because
I remember that. Oh,
left him to trash talk God.
Yeah, and then
Ellen White was the woman who had the vision.
Ellen White, yeah, that's who I'm thinking of. Sorry.
They're saying thank you, RJ and Dapper Dino. Thank you.
Dapper D's in the stream.
Yeah, he was there at my very futile talk last night.
Oh God, I was actually not there for that because
blessed innocent soul.
The thing is I need to go and watch it, but I wasn't there because I was having a conversation on Standing for Truth's channel with Raw Matt about.
Need is a relative term.
Yeah, you know, I mean, the thing is that I tried to cancel because I felt like garbage. I felt really sick yesterday, and then I was like, "Oh, we can't reschedule," and I was like, "Whatever, I'll just come on anyways." And I was like, "Dang, I'm missing Jackson's conversation."
So
you missed absolutely nothing.
So even at your weakest, were you able to kick his butt?
You know, I honestly, at one point when I realized that Raw Matt had, to my knowledge at least, this is the vibe that I was getting, never even heard of the phrase isochron dating. I thought to myself, you know,
what?
Yeah, I thought to myself, you know, maybe just maybe.
What do you mean they have a method that gets rid of those assumptions?
I know. Yeah,
assumptions.
I know. Well, and the thing is, you know, he's released this new, and this is actually an open call for everyone. I'm writing a video response to it now, but Raman has recently released a video that's supposedly a response to the phylogeny challenge. Yeah, and it addresses it kind of also uses like my little where do we draw the line phrasing. And he brought it up to me last night, and he cites this paper, right? That's on DNA barcoding, and I genuinely thought that my brain fog from being overwrought with the flu or COVID-19 or whatever it is that I've got had gotten the better of me, and I'd slipped into a fever dream. Because he he's talking about this paper, and I the whole time I keep saying, can you please send it to me so I can pull it up, because he won't bring up the author. It's very vague terminology. I have it now, but it's on DNA barcoding. So he's telling me about it, and he's like, yeah, they use DNA barcoding, and they managed. I'm sorry, I'm like taking us on a tangent. I'll be quick.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
But he's like, we've managed to group in sapiens, Denisovans, Neanderthalensis, and all into one group. And it's this many genetic differences away from the rest of the hominoids. And I was like, okay, yeah, it should be, because Homo is going to be very different from
right.
So, and he's making that if you diverge far enough, that just classifies you as a separate kind?
No, Colton, I don't know what the argument was. I genuinely don't know what
That's my favorite, when you're just kind of left there with no response.
I believe barcoding or DNA barcoding is still kind of up in the air at this point, isn't it? Because there was that whole fiasco with that one paper a couple of years back, and there was some controversy over that. So I don't know if it's I don't know. I'm not familiar. I'm not really up on the literature at this point.
I'm not either, which is why I was kind of like, because he starts talking about the canids, and he's like, yeah, it also grouped all the canids together, and all of these
DNA groups canids, film at 11.
Yeah, well, I was like, okay, so it sounds like what you're telling me, right, is that this is a means of putting organisms into categories using genetic similarities.
Ooh, if only we had a method for that already.
Yeah, I was like, it sounds like it's corroborating what we've been saying for years. I was like, Ramat, like, I don't know what you're saying. Like, it sounds to me like that's what you're saying. And he's like, well, but I'm telling you, this is why we draw the line. And I was like, what do you mean? You're not drawing a line. You're doing the same thing we've been doing. So I don't know. Maybe you guys, if you feel free to go watch it and tell me if it's clearer to you than it is to me.
Phylogenetics bores me to tears. I cannot.
Oh, that's it. Oh, we're fighting. We be fighting.
I'm sorry. I can't follow it, man. It's too much.
You and me, we're going to the monkey bars.
No, this is what I like, man. Okay, this is all I have.
No, we're done. We're done.
Yeah, a cage match. It's the only thing I know.
Okay, but I'm bringing the Rock in. He can bring his little papers.
Erica, who was your after show over on Dapper Dino's channel with?
Oh, that was with Bill Morgan. Yeah.
Yeah. When I was watching him, I meant to say a chat, but I think I said a chat. I might forget, but it was like, I can't remember. If you're going to debate something for or against something, so you know what you're debating for or against in the first place.
No, absolutely. I mean, and the classic question, right, is that it's like, all right, Bill, like, if you could have, a transitional ape man or what have you, well, what would it look like? But they never answer questions like that. They never want, they don't want to give you what it could be, because that means there's the potential of showing them that,
Yeah, I mean, if you give predictions, that means your idea can be tested, and if it can be tested, it means it could be wrong.
God forbid.
I don't think Bill even knew his own side of the debate.
I haven't even talked to him yet. RJ and I were supposed to do a double team with Bill and somebody else, and then they both dropped out, and then we had to talk to Neff, which was
oh god.
From when I heard your thing, Bill didn't even know his own side of the debate. Like, what's your Christian source? I don't know.
Well,
can I shamefully admit something?
Yes,
please do.
When I was like 14, I used to like Nephilim Free. I thought his content was quality before I learned something.
Colton.
I'm sorry about that.
Well, you know what?
Chat people, F's in the chat.
You know what? You already said phylogenetics is boring, so your credibility was already suspect.
I'm sorry, my brain can't understand it, dude.
Everything is a bifurcating tree except for bacteria and archaea. They're just in the wind.
Oh yeah,
this is all I know.
You are a living organism. You are phylogenetics. Think about that.
I mean, sure. I don't dispute that.
Yeah,
I'm dim for the deep field of that. Okay, I want to stick with my just haha rock.
Oh no, I think geology is way more complicated.
Yeah, I remember your debate or discussion with Nephilim. I think it was. You asked him how many. You asked me how many tetrapods or something, or therapsids were on the ark.
Oh, nice.
Jackson, wait, was that the one? Was that the one where the conversation you and RJ had with Neff, where it was like very close to rage quit territory?
That was me. I was the rage quit territory because he said he kept talking about molecular machines, and he's like, oh well, if you have this carbohydrate, it has this many permutations. I said, Neff, what the frick is a carbohydrate? What is a carbohydrate? And he's like, I'm not going to answer your evolutionist questions. I said, Neff, you don't know what a carbohydrate is. And he's like, well, so what if I don't know? Neff, you don't know what a carbohydrate is.
Oh my God. Yeah. You know, I mean, that's what I was saying. Who was I talking to? Oh, this was me and Dapper D were talking the other day. It's like there's so many little hallmarks that you can find in a conversation with someone that are like enormous red flags that you're dealing with a bad faith actor. And when not knowing the even rudimentary cursory knowledge of the topic that you're on, and that this person is claiming to be, you know, a jack of all trades expert in, that's when you really got to reevaluate the conversation.
I don't know what, because that was actually the one, where we were supposed to be talking about Morgan and maybe Standing. I don't remember, but it was him at least, and then we ended up not talking to either of them, and they got supplanted by Nephilim Free, which is just. And I told him after that, I said, I'm never talking to you about science again. I'm never doing a debate or discussion with you about this again, ever. And so,
Nephilim Free.
It hurts just knowing people like that exist.
I've yet to have a conversation with Neff, and I don't think I will. I've seen the way, you know, I feel like as an individual, I'm not assertive enough to be able to not be interrupted the entire conversation. You know, I had a great time chatting with Bill and with Standing. You know, I mean, there's some frustrating moments with all of that, but they were cordial enough with me. I don't think Neff would be cordial. I'm not a big fan of the guy.
You got my blood pressure raised again.
Do what?
Discussions can be fun, but sometimes it's just cathartic to scream at someone else and have them scream back at you and get nothing done. At least for me.
Is there even like debates anymore online? Almost all of them.
No, everyone's already picked their position, and I guarantee you, next to nobody will ever change their mind. At least not. Well,
modern day debate hosts, like he's like one of the few channels hosting like big debates anymore. Steve used to, but he's going to start doing them again in the near future. But other than that, not really. Because as you said, this isn't 2004 anymore. People know what sides they're on now, you know?
Yeah. So. The internet is out there.
Unfortunately.
Pandora's box has been opened. It's not getting put back in.
Anyways, we should keep going.
People can look that up now.
Okay, back to something that actually means anything. So the geologic record is something that geologists have pieced together using the tools that we went over earlier. Earth's history is generally illustrated by the geologic column, which is shown here, and it's divided into different lengths of time, with eons being the largest and epochs generally being the smallest, at least without getting way too technical and starting to get into severe debates over chronology.
So how come in the earlier times it's mostly eons, but then periods up there, but then we got
it's actually not. It's just if I had one that contained everything, it would have been too big to fit on.
It's like pages and pages.
Because as far as I know, the only one that doesn't split down into eras, periods, and epochs is the Hadean. And that's because we have next to nothing from it.
Right. Right.
But once you get into the Archean, you start getting like the Paleo-Archean and the Meso-Archean, and I mean, it just keeps breaking down. Yeah. But first, we have to ask, how old is that rock? So methods of dating are required in order to prescribe.
You have to make sure it's a non-minor before you start dating it.
Yeah, you got to make sure that it's legal to examine the rock.
So no igneous.
Oh, unfortunate. Metamorphic's too old for me too.
You got to get in that. What's the rule? It's your age halved plus or minus 7 million years, right?
So, but yeah, in order to construct the geologic column in any meaningful way, we need methods of actually dating it. And there are two basic types. You have relative dating and absolute dating. So relative dating refers to prescribing non-specific ages to rocks based on the geological principles. So I've got a little hypothetical column here of A, B, C, and D. Based on the geologic principles we went over, as long as this is an undisturbed column, we can say that D is older than C, which is older than B, which is older than A. However, we can't actually tell what their numerical ages are, at least not without extreme margins of error and only the roughest estimates possible. Absolute dating, however, saves the day here. It comes in the form of using naturally stable clocks that we can use to calculate the age of a sample. The most widely known examples are radioisotope methods, particularly carbon-14, although a lot of people seem to think that we use carbon-14 to date the age of the planet, and we don't.
Wait, we don't?
You mean don't carbonate? You mean don't carbonate everything you find?
Yeah,
Let's-
don't
let's
carbonate the
carbonate-
dinosaur
carbonate.
fossil either.
Can I carbon date this rock?
Yeah, no. But the way radioisotope dating works is you have unstable isotopes called parent isotopes, which decay at a relatively constant rate into daughter isotopes. And one can use the ratio then of the parent to the daughter in a sample to work out the age of the age of the sample in a numerical value, provided you know the half-life. So
let me dip in here. I want to get Colton. I want to get you to answer a question that I get asked very frequently, and I want to make sure that I'm answering it as correctly as I can be. So when individuals like to posit that what good is radiometric dating if when we're attempting to date rocks that we know the age of, we can't actually get a correct date for them? They're the Mount St. Helens ones, or usually it's like a volcanic rock, right, that they attempt to date and get wildly different dates.
So I know that refers to either the ones in Hawaii or the ones in New Zealand or some other.
It's New Zealand, Hawaii, and Mount St. Helens. Those are the big three that they
Those
use.
are the Snelling estimates, aren't they?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, the creationist geologists who submitted those samples deliberately misused the method, which is a problem. However, the general response is that it does depend on the method being used. Potassium argon, for example, you can get with a new magma bubbling up, it can outgas potassium and look older than it is. But the thing is, there are methods that account for this, particularly argon-argon dating. And for creationists who want to say, well, there's never been a time when we've ever dated a volcano that we knew when it erupted and gotten the correct date. Look at the argon-argon dating of Mount Vesuvius at Pompeii. We got it within, I think, 50 years.
Wow.
You better treat that volcano
Because
right.
it
If you're dating
works
it.
if
You
you
better
use
treat it
that
right,
properly.
because it'll get mad at you otherwise.
Oh, that's very neat. Also, Eric, no, I was never a YEC. That's very cool. I did not know that. Oh, someone asked you, how do you find the half-life in the comments?
Oh, that goes into physics and chemistry, and I'm not equipped to deal with that.
None of us are physicists.
Yeah, that's going to be, it's interesting when you get a group of people who know their field in a room, they tend to not talk outside of their field too much. It's not with any authority.
I know we went over it in one of my classes, but it was such a brief glossing over compared to actually figuring out how old something is once you know the half-life.
Pulls out
I
the
can't
board,
remember
the whiteboard.
I can't remember how exactly it's calculated.
Right.
Yeah, that's why
well,
most people are a major of everything. They focus on one thing and go on.
Yeah,
that.
I mean, outside of this, I can't comment on literally anything except chromosome 2. Which I'm sure Donovan loves. Thanks, Donovan. I know you're
Thanks, Tompkins. Thanks, Tompkins.
Tompkins for the win.
really use that telomere-specific gene to prove it's not a telomere remnant.
And it literally shows a picture of the signature for telomere.
Oh my god!
But backwards.
You know what the funny thing is he talks about how much it's expressed. It's almost indistinguishable from random noise, and he's like, "Look, it's expressed." Wow.
Well, speaking of chromosome
Fascinating.
too, something I wanted to ask Eric on our last thing ran out of time. Do we know what chromosome 2 did in our lineage?
What do you mean by what it did?
Yeah, are you just asking why it split, or sorry, rather why it fused?
No, okay, right. I'm not why it fused. What did that fusion do for our lineage? Do we know that, or?
As far as I know, it didn't do much.
Yeah, I mean, as it's kind of one of those things where it's one of those accidents that doesn't really have any consequences.
Okay.
So it's neither selected for or against, at least.
So it's like neutral, not it's like so it's more neutral mutation than
It might have slightly lowered was it viability from what I've seen, because there seems to be from what I understand, there might be a slight lowering of viability associated with chromosomal fusions.
Right, and either that though, because I mean, obviously we saw a heavy selection for organisms at least in our lineage that had that fusion occur. They were very prolific. So it could be that there was a benefit that we're not aware of that occurred at the time, the pressure at the time that encouraged this selection. It could be as simple as the male or female that initially had it was just super fit in and of themselves.
Yeah, I was wondering if that was a benefit to us or just something neutral thing that we just passed along.
It could have just been drift, and it was like associated with some other. Like perhaps the dude or female who had it was particularly attractive and got around. I mean,
yeah, that's the thing. I mean, and so long as it's not harming fitness, which I don't know, Jackson, you mentioned that it might. You would think, which not necessarily. It's sort of like I was rereading The Greatest Show on Earth the other day, but it's sort of like the appendix, right? Where it's like, why haven't we lost the appendix entirely? Well, it's because
I lost mine entirely. It got ripped right out of me.
It got sliced out of you. It was
they just took a big machete and went.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's one of those things though where it's like we might be at the period now where if it gets any smaller, the fitness decrease.
Well,
the risk.
I mean,
high.
It still does perform a function. It's an inoculum.
It's a reservoir, right? A bacterial reservoir.
Yes, you have a specific. Weirdly enough, you have like a very particular gut or colon biogeography of bacteria, and so your appendix, your cecoappendicular complex, functions as an inoculum to sort of refill your bacteria reservoirs if you have like Geologic dysentery or something like that, and you just flush everything out.
I read somewhere too that I literally can't tell you where I read it, but I think I remember reading that individuals who still have their appendix tend to have a recovery of gut flora faster after a round of antibiotics than those who don't.
Maybe.
Am I crazy?
I haven't heard anything about that.
Independent from the question, wouldn't you say?
All I know is that creationists like to cry that, oh, well, that's a function, even though Darwin himself said that vestigial doesn't mean functionless, and I just can't get past it.
Well, the funny thing is that for decades, probably nearly 100 years by now, the researchers have been suggesting that there is some cryptic function of the appendix because it's associated with lymphatic tissue, and they were like, hey, maybe it does actually do something, but we just don't know what, because the thought that we're culturing bacteria within ourselves purposefully was a weird thought. And so it's less weird now because we're what 10%,
what like 60% of our body conservative estimate is bacteria.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
Look at this page real fast. For a long time, I didn't even know the Precambrian had a different name besides this. Oh, it's Cambrian and Precambrian.
Yeah. So there is a general. I call it the Great Divide. I don't know if anyone else does.
We'll get
but
that.
The geologic column is split into two. So you have the Precambrian rocks, and then you have what's called the Phanerozoic eon. The Precambrian rock actually makes up over 88% of Earth's history, and itself has three major eons: the Hadean, Archean, and Proterozoic, which can all be divided, with the exception of the Hadean, into many different eras and epochs and so on. Life existed, but was primarily single-celled only until the late Proterozoic, I believe. And that's when you started getting like the Ediacaran biota. But before that, you didn't have a whole lot other than single cells and stromatolites. The Phanerozoic, by contrast, which is first marked by the Cambrian period, comprises the remaining 12% and is the current eon we are in. It marks where animal and plant life dominates the Earth, and we're going to go through the different periods of the Phanerozoic and the snapshot of time they represent. But yeah, we're gonna briefly go over the Precambrian eons at the least. Going further than that would take up way too much time.
We have 5-part podcast.
Yeah. So the Hadean eon is the earliest eon of the Earth's geologic record. Began with the formation of the Earth 4.6 billion years ago. Ended about 4 billion years ago. The term Hadean is a throwback to the Greek god of the underworld, Hades, which is inappropriate because the Greek underworld was often thought of as a place full of fire, and the Earth was pretty molten at the time. Zircon's dating to about 4.4 billion years ago shows that there was at least some cooled crustal material which existed about 200 million years after the Earth formed. It was a time full of magmatic oceans, and there were numerous impacts as the solar system was still a very messy and crowded place. The moon formed. Go ahead.
So will we find the Hadean rock like in meteors? That be the.
You would find equivalent stellar material, I guess, is what I would call it. But it's not like Earth rock. But it would be about the same age. A meteor would be about equivalent.
Have you heard of Neff's lunar bukkake theory?
Oh,
Unfortunately.
my God.
Well, see, because then it could be actual Earth material.
Why doesn't it have any of the characteristics?
You know what? That's not relevant.
I'm not answering your Evotard questions.
Does Neff know or understand the connotations between the lunar bukkake nickname for his hypothesis? I really hope that he does.
Look, what I'm still wondering, because I know Neff was a hydroplate guy, how did solar radiation circularize meteor orbits? I need to know that, because I play a lot of Kerbal Space Program, and circularization takes a lot of energy.
We're not answering your evolutionist questions here.
All right.
You guys watch Arrested Development at all?
No.
There's this quote that Lucille, she's the matriarch of the family, and she goes, "I don't understand the question, and I won't respond to it." That's just what goes in my head every time you ask a question, and there's like a Gish Gala.
But anyway, yeah. So that's an artistic rendition of what it probably looked like when a Mars-sized object in the Hadean period collided with the Earth, and this was how we got the Moon. Or at least it's the best supported model of how we got the Moon.
So that's the thing they call the Theia planet?
Yeah. So it was about a Mars-sized planet, boom, hit us, ejected a lot of material, and the Moon formed around this time. Basically as everything in the ring that we temporarily had coalesced.
Good thing we weren't there.
Yeah. As you can see, it was not a pretty place.
I love the art, though. I love this art, and I love the art that you're going to show for the Archean period and onward. There's something so reminiscent of like the it's very.
It looks like Coruscant.
It's kind of it reminds me of like the background art in the first Land Before Time movie. So it's very nostalgic for me, I believe. I think that's why I like it so much. It's very spooky and very primordial. I love it.
Almost like two cells come together, pulling apart.
It's a little asymmetric, but it's all right.
So then we get to the Archean, which spanned from about 4 to 2.5 billion years ago, so about a 1.5 billion year period. This is the first unit with subdivisions because it's one of the first that we actually have any substantial amount of rock from. Primarily the
single cell creatures.
Yep. So the first unit of is generally called the Eoarchean, followed by the Paleoarchean, Mesoarchean, and Neoarchean eras. And then these all have their own subdivisions and so on. The name Archean was first used in 1872 by geologist James Dwight Donna, derived from the Greek word arche, meaning beginning or origin. The atmosphere, from what we understand, for most of it at least, lacked oxygen. It was a very nasty place to live.
So this area was named before we found out the single cell creatures. Then
yeah, they didn't have the ability to look at microfossils at the time.
Besides, a lot of bacteria, just little carbonaceous smudges on the rock.
Yeah,
anyway.
even if they did, it would have been hard to recognize. We do know, however, that liquid oceans did form around this time, derived from both escaping water vapor locked up in the mantle and also from water ice brought on by comets. The Earth's crust cooled enough to allow the formation of the first continents, which would have originally looked like small island arcs, but would have gradually grown in size with volcanic activity. It makes up the majority of Earth's ancient rock. Examples can be found exposed in places like the Canadian Shield, which is an example of it here. Most of the rocks are either plutonic masses of granite and diorite or highly metamorphized deep water sediments like mudstones or gray rocks. Banded iron formations also make an appearance in this eon, indicating the initial oxygenation of the atmosphere. This is about when we think life formed. Fossils are primarily bacterial microfossils or stromatolite mounds. Bacterial microfossils are known as far back as 3.8 billion years ago, although there is some chemical evidence that might indicate it could have formed around 4 billion years ago.
So these were
In
probably sorry.
Go ahead. No.
These were probably more anaerobic.
Yeah, they wouldn't have been aerobic.
Yep, you betcha.
But either in any case, it looks like when we had the potential for life to be here, life was here. It did not take super long to get established.
Yeah, it only took 6 days.
Oh, yikes!
Boom, roasted.
Them hypercycles. Those are super hypercycles.
It hurts.
Oh, I love this. Is a cute.
That's an example of what the Earth probably would have looked like at the time.
So did you draw these, or did you find these?
These are just things I pulled off of Google Images. I'm not that artistic.
He draws them all.
Volcanoes, oceans.
Yeah, stromatolite mounds forming the hydrothermal stuff. Pretty cool. So then we reach the Proterozoic eon, which spans from 2.5 billion years ago to 541 million years ago. So about 2 billion years, give or take. The name comes from the Greek words protero, meaning former or earlier, and zoic, a suffix related to zo, the Greek word for life. This Proterozoic then translates literally to former life. It's subdivided into the Paleoproterozoic, which spans from about 2.5 to 1.6 billion years ago, the Neoproterozoic, which is about 1.6 to 1 billion years ago, and then the Neoproterozoic, which is from 1 billion to 541 million years ago. It contains an abundance of metallic ores such as gold, copper, uranium, and nickel. This is where we find a lot of our valuable stuff. It was marked by significant changes to the atmosphere during the Great Oxygenation Event, which started in the late Archean but continued and really ramped up in the Proterozoic. And this is what led to the first banded iron formations.
And that was probably our first mass extinction event, possibly.
Yes, actually, there was recent research that we may have had a purely bacterial mass extinction event during the Great Oxygenation.
They went out with a whimper, not a bang.
Yeah, that's for sure. And then as things progress and we get close to the Cambrian period, we actually reach about 710 million years ago. Massive glaciers started forming and covered almost all of the planet. There is debate as to if glaciers managed to cover the entire planet or merely most of it. These are competing hypotheses which are respectively known as snowball and slushball Earth. I'm in camp slushball because there was an excellent paper in the in about 2008, I believe, where they did a test of predictions of snowball Earth, where they said, okay, if glaciers completely covered the planet, equator and all, you would expect a hydrologic shutdown, which would leave specific signatures in the rocks. And, well, we went to look for those signatures and we couldn't find them. So it looks like we may have had a band of liquid water and exposed continent around the equator, but most of the Earth was still frozen.
I saw a video, I think it was on PBS Eons, I think, or one of those educational channel things where they talk about this. There are two different things. That one was snowball Earth, the other one was called some kind of glaciation event.
Yeah, cryogenian glaciation, and which is subdivided into Huronian and Startian glaciation events.
Is that different from snowball Earth or the same thing?
No, that was the snowball Earth was a couple different times. That's just the general term for it, as far as I understand it.
Yeah, there were multiple glaciations involved, but that's just the generalized term for it. Yeah. This is also where multicellular life actually first appears, most notably the Ediacaran fauna.
They love.
Yeah,
they all love making snow angels.
All right, everyone in the chat, tell us your favorite Ediacaran organism, and you can't say Dickinsonia because that one's my favorite.
Damn it,
Icaria waurutia.
Ooh, the new one. our first little
Yeah.
bilaterian potential.
Although well, actually, there's also, Dickinsonia is a bilaterian, so are Kimberella, Caretza, Yelingia, and 1, 2, 3, Icaria. I'm missing one. I don't remember. I will continue. I apologize. A debate of flat earther? No, I won't do it.
Yeah, the thing is that I don't know. I realize that the young Earth creationism camp and the flat Earth camp are very cut from the same cloth. But I don't feel like doing all the research for every single flat Earth. I mean, when even Kent Hovind is standing up there and saying it's ridiculous. It's
I mean, all you need is trigonometry to debunk the flat Earth.
Yeah.
Here's my argument. Okay, if you think that I'm going to actually buy that NASA made a bunch of F1 engines for the Saturn V, used them on the ground, and then took them out on a ferry and dumped them in the ocean for people to coincidentally find right where we would expect the trajectory of a falling rocket stage to land, you're an idiot and you're not worth discussing things with.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Conspiracy.
Two things about this. One, two things. One, I actually understand a little bit creationists more I do flat earthers, because creationists only have 100 years to get with the program, give or take. Flat earthers have a lot longer to get with the program.
Well, actually, to be fair, most educated people throughout most of history dating back to the 3rd century BC have recognized that the Earth is round. You had Eratosthenes, who was like, "Oh no, we can definitely."
So they saw a lot longer.
We can show you based on the angle of the shadows and stuff. The Earth is definitely round, and then you also had this whole scene between Alfred Russel Wallace and these flat earthers where they were prove the Earth is round, and he said, "Did it? Give me my money," and they sued him. Great.
The other thing is, I have the perfect argument for flat earthers. Ready for it? Mountains exist. There you go.
Got him.
Well, my favorite one is the thing about the planes. How planes fly from Australia to South Africa. Well, if the Earth were flat, the fastest way to fly, if you're looking at the azimuthal distribution or whatever, was the UN map. The fastest way for a plane to fly from Australia to South Africa would be over the Himalayas. and so,
you're getting something though.
What?
The UN is a bunch of reptiles.
Oh my god.
So why are you trusting their map? How do you know the continents even exist? Prove to me anything other than America exists.
I'm sorry. You're right. Australia.
Erica, you're lying. Erica, you're lying. You did not go to the UK. You are lying.
Yeah, that's the thing. I actually just went to the edge of the America, the Americas.
Did you hit the American ice wall?
Yeah, I just hung out on the ice wall.
Oh, actually, that makes so much sense now. Everything's coming into focus.
On your map, if Europe is Europe and Asia is to the east of us, or to the west of us.
You know what? This explains why they're talking about the border with Mexico, because Mexico isn't real. It's the ice wall.
Yeah.
Our southern border. This makes sense. All I'm saying.
See, my best argument is I want to see one of the guys who thinks that the Earth is hollow and full of Nazis or whatever debate a flat earther.
Inverted hollow Earth is the most beautiful theory I have ever heard.
I want James from Modern Day Debate to set up a tag team where we've got Moon as a hologram and flat Earth versus hollow Earth full of Nazis and a young Earth creationist.
This is the. I think the internet would end. It would cease to exist during that exchange.
That's my dream matchup.
Oh my god. Oh man.
The winner would be the anti-intellectualists.
Hey,
would lose brain cells in the exchange. It would be great.
I'm sorry for the low quality, but
that's Starkiller base right there.
Yeah. That's basically what Snowball Earth or Slushball Earth would have looked like.
So how do you get the photo? Who took this photo?
Oh,
God damn.
I rest my case with his Nikon camera.
Yeah, honestly, I really think, as far as vitriol from creationists, they really, really hate reconstructions, and they really, really hate all manner of artistic renditions. So
they never reconstruct their own stuff.
Yeah, they would not like this picture right here.
Like you have in the Ark Park this like tiny little reconstruction globe that they think Noah had, and it has the supercontinent of Rodina on it. And it's like,
Wow.
you want to tell me that all these supercontinents formed and broke up later in 1 year? Like, okay.
Yes.
This might prove creationists right. The Earth was surrounded by water at one time.
I have actually had some very heated discussions where people have said, so you disbelieve a global flood, but you believe in a global ice age. My answer is yes.
They got you there. Checkmate, atheists.
I
So where's Noah's in this ice? Where's Noah's Ark?
Oh, it's right there in that little stream.
Well, that's probably like hundreds of miles across.
Yeah. I mean, hey, it would have looked global to him. He doesn't know about the ice wall.
Well, same if he lived on like a farm in the Middle East and a flood came through. The whole world got flooded.
Well, I say at this point in time, Noah actually had all the animals and stuff on the Ark at this point.
I hope he had a nice jacket too.
Yeah.
Guys, I just figured it out.
What?
This was how God got rid of the heat.
Oh my god.
Oh,
It would actually be very interesting to see how our heat would match up with slushball Earth rather.
Well, they don't believe that there were ever ancient ice ages. Which, I mean, thank God they don't. They have to argue that all these tillite deposits that we have are somehow just submarine landslides. Yeah, they don't have any of the characteristics of submarine landslides.
Do you know, Jackson? Do you know, or not Jackson, Colton? Do you know what their explanation for dropstones is?
I know that Ord seems to think that they were just brought into place by the submarine landslides, or they were carried on vegetation mats and dropped into this underwater thing.
While the vegetation mats were on fire to create the entire Carboniferous.
Yes.
Yes.
I love that.
Speaking of ice ages, when I was at the Creation Museum like 10 years ago, I remember one thing where they talked about how the flood caused the ice age somehow.
Well, it's the flash frozen mammoths and all that. Well, you know what the best thing is? Kurt Wise, the floating forest type. I think saying it's a hypothesis is kind of being generous, but the concept, he applies the same logic to the oceans. I don't know if you've read his papers, but he's like, there are concentric like rings of reefs around continents. And so you have like the Precambrian organism. I'm just getting the camera. You have like Ediacaran organisms on the outside, then like Mesozoic organisms closer, then the Cenozoic animals closer. Yeah. It's gravy.
So isn't it nice that we have this incredible gradient of trilobites that have just decided to hang out in neat little categories?
This reminds me, Jackson, you know of Ariel Roth, right?
Oh yes, we actually read a couple of works by him.
I don't think I've gotten to that point in the book yet, but the thing is, I ran into an interesting explanation of his for the segregation of marine reptiles and cetaceans. Ariel Roth seems to think that the pre-flood world had isolated, like elevated oceans. And so you had like a major ocean where all the Cambrian through Devonian stuff is. And then you have dry land, and then you have another global ring ocean with the marine reptiles. And then higher up, you have another isolated giant sea where all the cetaceans are. And it's just,
I wish I had known about that because we write quite a bit about the biogeography. So I really wish I'd known about that prior. Maybe RJ and I can slip it next book, but that is gold right there. So you have struck like pure gold. RJ, I hope you're taking notes.
It's awful. I'll send that to RJ too. It's awful.
Now get to them.
Thank you. That's beautiful.
Sorry. So the Cambrian period was the earliest period of Paleozoic. Yeah. And then we have the misconception slide. So I put some work into this. Cambrian ranged from 541 to 485.4 million years ago, give or take a little bit. It's rich in invertebrate marine fossils. It's known for the infamous Cambrian explosion, where life experienced substantial precipitation. Relatively warm, polar ice was not abundant. The name comes from the word Cambria, which is the Roman name for Wales, which is where Adam Sedgwick, one of the pioneers of geology, studied some of the outcrops of this unit. The upper boundary is marked by the Cambrian Ordovician extinction event. Here we see many species of conodonts and trilobites just completely disappear, and geochemical evidence from this boundary indicates a depletion in oceanic oxygen may have been responsible for it.
So the opposite of the Great Reaction, the lack of oxygenation event.
Yep. There's an entire field called chemostratigraphy, which is a death blow to flood geology, by the way, which deals specifically with these global patterns of chemical change recorded in the rocks and how they correlate with mass extinctions.
Favorite Cambrian animal in the chat or plant?
You know what? Every time I even hear the word Cambrian explosion or phrase, I get triggered. I'm sorry. It very much triggers me.
Sorry, man. Anomalocaris is my favorite.
Anomalocaris is
very
great.
nice.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. It was thought to be like the part of an organism, part of a separate animal before they found all of its parts. Well, do it.
I didn't say anything.
Oh, I thought I heard. Oh, well, it was like the parts were thought to be like the mouth parts were a jellyfish. And then you have like the eyes were like thought to be another part of an organism. It was fun.
Yeah, it's got that really early like crushing mouth part that's very
creepy looking.
Very strange. I love Anomalocaris. I think it's a great
the Cambrian was almost like an alien world. I mean, actually, for all intents and purposes, it basically was.
Yeah, oh, hold on just a second. Let me make positive about this. I want to make sure I'm saying this. It's Morella, yes?
Morella, yeah.
It's essentially an arthropod.
Yeah, it's like when you have, well, from the most recent trees I've seen, it's a basal mandibulate, so you have like paraphyletic crustaceans and insects, and then you have the myriapods, and so Morella's kind of basal to both of those.
Right.
That's what I liked about Erica's new series, because we learn how to do stuff with how to Google stuff.
Yeah, I do a lot of Googling in that series. The thing is I every time I'm about to say something, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I know this, and then I second guess myself, and I'm like, well, we're just gonna make positive together, so I didn't say something.
No, just say it. Well, at least just spit it out there.
At least you show your sources.
So here's a fun little tidbit about Morella. So I had my entomology professor in my undergraduate experience. He was a big fan of Morella. Like that was his favorite, Cambrian organism. And he tried to convince his wife to name their daughter Morella because he thought it was a beautiful name. And she was like, oh, that is really pretty. And then she was like, wait a second. She's like,
wait.
Is this some kind of arthropod? You want to tell me? You want to tell me why you want to name our daughter after an arthropod?
Hey, have you ever tried naming your child Opabinia or something?
Oh, Opabinia or hallucinogenia.
Oh yeah, hallucinogenia. It's a weird one. Or Collencium or Zanusion or any of those other weird lobopods.
Yeah, very experimental.
So you ever watch this series?
Walking with Monsters. Walking with Monsters was awesome.
I saw one with a Bethalosaurus, but I didn't.
That was, yeah. That one had the Meratherium in it. I really like that one.
I think they cover Ambulocetus as well in one episode.
Yeah, that was the first episode because it's like Eocene, early Eocene Europe is like the first one, then late Eocene Africa is the second one.
Right. Yeah. Checks out.
Everyone's favorite, the trilobites.
Oh, the trilobites! I love.
I don't know. They're okay.
I did not know they lasted until the Permian.
He hates ammonites.
They were going away by then, but
yeah, they had glimpses though of success. I mean, if I remember correctly, they didn't quite after the Devonian, they didn't quite get back to their numbers.
Yeah, they never really fully recovered, but they did kind of hang on for a while.
If I remember correctly, it was a big blow at the Devonian, and then they kind of tapered.
We can make it. Oh, the Great Dying. Never mind.
Yeah. The Permian, guys. I cannot recommend this enough. The book, the main source that I use for Earth's extinctions is Ends of the World, and it's Peter Brannon. It is excellent. I can't recommend its description of the Permian extinction is so ridiculous. Like you're reading it and you're like, this sounds absolutely absurd. It sounds like some flood geology shit, honestly. That's how wild the Permian was.
You know, I'll order it today and I'll get it by the end of next month.
Well, luckily for us, we made it through all of them so far, at least.
Well, yeah, or it's someone in our lineage did. Thank God. Or I don't know. Is it a good thing? I'm not sure. The jury's still out on whether humanity was a good thing.
Well, I say so far. I mean, don't know if we're making this current one, but we'll see.
We'll see. Or Earth's trying to decide if they want to end their free trial. That's where we're at right now.
Well, they already put the credit card in, so they can't get rid of premium even if they try.
Exactly. Yeah. And even if they do, this is a Planet Fitness style cancellation plan, so you have to keep card.
That analogy went so far, man.
All right, let's. I want to hear about the Ordovician. I'm excited.
All right, so the Ordovician was named after the Welsh tribe, the Ordovices. It was defined in 1879 by Charles Lapworth in order to solve a dispute between Sedgwick and Murchison, who were arguing over if its units belonged to the Cambrian or the Silurian. And interestingly enough, I didn't know this, it wasn't internationally adopted until 1960.
Wow.
So there were some people who just didn't think it existed up until that point. So it spanned 485 to basically 443 million years ago, give or take. Continents were joined together to form the supercontinent of Gondwana, covering most of the southern hemisphere. Arthropods and mollusks were dominant in the oceans, although fish and the first true vertebrates make their appearance at this point.
But the little, not the jawed fish yet.
No, not yet. Major glaciations occurred once again here, correlating with the mass extinction of nearly 61% of all marine life, which this extinction event is what we use to mark the end of the Ordovician.
Yeah, the first extinction event we show love to.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Actually, yes. All right, favorite Ordovician organism in the chat. I want to see.
I know like next to none from the Ordovician.
What is it? Well, I get.
Come on, let's hear the.
The earliest ammonites were starting to show up.
Oh, look, there he is. Yeah.
Did you see that the series? I forget it was called. It was like a 5-part series about the 5 mass extinctions.
Oh, I didn't see it.
No, I haven't seen anything like that.
Pretty good. You look it up. And the first episode, they talk about.
It's called the Ballad of Earth.
The fight between these guys and these guys.
Oh my God! Yeah, I'm actually fairly certain I pulled a clip for that for my Ordovician video. Yeah, come on, you guys, you got cool guys here. You've got the Eurypterids, our big sea scorpions, Chimeraceras, the massive Orthoceras, relative. Isotylus rex, the biggest trilobite of all time. I think this is some kind of agnathan here on the bottom. Oh God, that little tadpole-looking dude, Sacabambaspis. Those guys are ridiculous looking.
There's a conodon up there in the corner.
Yeah, conodon. Yeah. Oh my God, good catch. I didn't even see.
One day, my ancestors will rule the overworld.
The day of tetrapod decadence is upon us.
Thing.
Here, hold on, guys. My dog just barged in. I gotta go close this door.
Yeah. So these are like the ancestors or like the cousins of the octopus and squids.
Yeah.
Yeah, they made their shell like smaller and smaller and smaller, and so the only remnant that they have today is just their little beak.
Mm-hmm.
That's all that's left of it. But yeah, these conodonts are nice. Index fossils are really cool.
Yeah, they're very specific too, so they're very, very good for charting extinctions and making sure you've got your little subdivisions all nice and neat.
And the funny thing is that like some of the there's a group of worms called the catagnats, which are probably or were probably mistaken for conodonts for a while. They're called the protoconodonts. And it turns out it's catagnat spines, the arrow worms.
Oh,
Life is weird because worms and fish.
yeah. So someone refreshed
Such as like
the conodonts, right? It's the we didn't know what the teeth were for quite some time.
No, not for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, so then we reach the Silurian period. Right here, I have an example of the Ordovician-Silurian boundary. So the Silurian period marked the development of jawed and bony fish. It spanned from about 443 to 419 million years ago. First identified by Roderick Murchison, a British geologist studying outcrops in South Wales. So he named it after the Silures, a Celtic tribe who was native to Wales. So there was a mild extinction event between it and the overlying Devonian, mostly seen in graptolites, and it correlates with a shift in the carbon cycle, with chemical signatures left in the sediment, but it didn't seem to be that big compared to the other mass extinctions we've had. So it's a very subtle turnover that you have to keep an eye out for if you're looking for the boundary.
This time, the carbon thing wasn't our fault, though.
Yeah, for once.
Except for the graptolites, they didn't keep an eye out for it because they don't have eyes. Oh, joke's on them.
This was also the time when you started getting terrestrial life for the first time. You started getting primitive vascular plants, and terrestrial arthropods started coming up and starting to have a heyday.
Those stupid protostones, they use both the land and the air.
Well, I mean, you have sort of. It's like there are some fossil. There are some like spores that go back to the Ordovician. There's an old Kenrick and Crane paper that talks about those. But yeah, you got like the bryophytes and stuff that are making their way on land in like the lower areas near the water. Even to this day, they're
I wasn't aware of that.
You would imagine the move from I almost heard it this way, right? Like the only novel sort of evolution that we've seen, quote unquote, is prokaryote to eukaryote. But I really do think that you could almost make an argument that terrestriality is a gigantic leap, almost worthy of that title as well, just because you're doing a complete restructuring of body plans.
Yeah.
Almost.
I mean, even the bacteria are categorized into two major clades based on whether they had a terrestrial phase or not.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's fairly. What is it? Batistuzi, I think, is the name of the person. There's a Pterobacteria and Hydrobacteria, and part of the thinking might be that the evolution of photosynthesis and the ancestors of cyanobacteria was, as well as endospores like in Deinococcus, were in part the result of this terrestriality.
I mean, to me, it seems rather intuitive, right? That's a massive change that would indeed take a long time, which is why I always thought it was kind of weird that they give it to the Devonian, maybe the Silurian, but I've seen usually people say the Devonian is when we the colonization of land by hornworts and things like that.
I mean, there are fungi going back 1 billion years. There was a fungus or a fungal spore discovered last year, Orosphera geraldiae, which dates to like 1 billion years old, which kind of makes sense. I mean, but other than like some tiny fungi and some bacteria,
things not even.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Just kind of there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is you're gonna have to be. I can see it with spores, right? Because spores are notorious for being rather robust, so you can kind of make almost see how the jump is going to be way less kind of stressful for spores than it is for anything else. I mean, if you're a plant, you've got to restructure everything with water, for your water transport, and you got to do the same. You've got to do way more if you're, an animal.
Yeet.
But yeah, following this, we go on to here's an example of what life would have looked like, particularly in the oceans.
We got mouths or jaws.
Start getting jaws.
Oh man, I don't remember. Their ancestors are sharks, but I don't remember what the name is.
I was just a fan of the sea scorpions, honestly.
Oh, I feel really bad now. I can't remember.
Hold on, wait. I'm popping back in. Oh yeah, these guys. We already said placoderms, yeah.
The placoderm is a paraphyletic grouping. You had what are they called? Because you basically have like the placoderms of the armored fish, and it breaks off, and you have the ancestors of sharks. And I'm drawing a blank. I hate that I'm drawing. Doliotis was one of them. That might be Doliotis.
Is it the Sarcopterygians and the Chondrichthyans?
Well, I mean, Chondrichthyans is the whole group, but there's the stem sharks. That's the stem elasmobranchs or stem chondrichthyes, which I can't remember the name. Oh man, I have to look it up now because I'm gonna feel silly when I read it.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah. This is where the
Chimeramorphs?
This is where the
Chimeramorphs?
Yeah. This is where the people like, oh my god, that they can bite back now.
Acanthodians.
Yeah.
Oh man. I feel silly.
Well, I wasn't going to guess that, so if it makes you feel any better. That like rings a very distant bell from zoology from like 5 or 6 years ago. Oh, these guys are so cute. I love them. Their little bulbous heads.
Is that like Pterygotus back there? The gigantic or Jacalopterus? Actually, no, Jacalopterus is Carboniferous.
Jacalopterus had those really long appendages in the front, for sure.
Or maybe they're just some sort of pterygoid. I don't know.
Looks like the water was very clear back then.
Before all the pollution.
Well, listen, you say that, but after the Permian extinction, and you'll find out if you read Peter Brandon's book, which I shill for constantly, even though I've never met him, which I would love to, though. Yeah, he was talking about how right after the Permian, there was so much detritus, essentially, in the water that you had a period of time where it was just slime and crinoids, basically. Like, it was like slime in the water, crinoids in the water.
I would imagine those giant volcanoes are about equivalent to the crap we put out. Although what's amazing is that just means that we are outputting the same level of stuff that takes literal chains of super volcanoes to produce.
There is some, you guys will hear it. I'm doing I'm almost done with the Devonian extinction, and I'm working on the Permian script now. But there are some wild numbers. Like I was reading it, and I was like, essentially what the author was saying is we couldn't do this much damage if we made a concentrated effort. And that's how bad the Permian was. Like, it's not to make our situation in the Anthropocene, quote unquote, seem less bad, but it's just to emphasize how extraordinary the Permian was, and how long it took. I mean, we tend to think of it as like a couple of years because we can't even comprehend that level of time.
Yeah, it was like several 100,000 years at the least, wasn't it?
It took
just
forever.
Slowly killing everything off.
And the Devonian was several million years. The Devonian extinction was a long time. It was like pulsed. It was very weird. Let's speak of the Devonian. Let's talk about.
Speaking of the Devonian, so the Devonian comes right after the Silurian. It's named after Devon, England, where outcrops of it were first studied.
Most of these things in the England and the British Isle area.
Yes, if you're starting to notice that trend, and I'm glad you are. Most of the earliest geologists were from Europe. So you've got this period spanned from about 419 to 358 million years ago. So it's about a 60 million year period. It's often called the Age of Fishes because this is where we start seeing a lot of diversification and variation of fish and fish fossils. Ammonites, true ammonites, actually make their first appearance here as well. So it experienced as far as I could tell when doing my research, it experienced the first significant divergence of terrestrial life. So this is where you start getting complex vascular plants, forming some of the first forests, and the first seed-bearing plants make their appearance here. Terrestrial arthropods start thriving in abundance, only to be cut off by the late Devonian extinction.
And this is where we finally catch up with the arthropods on land. Like we finally made it.
This is where our ancestors start making their first baby steps out of the water too.
Also, the big boys, Archaeopteryx, not to be confused with Archaeopteryx, but our first big, not just a knee-high plants, right? We get our towering 130 feet tall or something like that.
But what about prototaxites?
Ooh, yes, please.
So the late Devonian extinction is what marks the end of this, and in it we have about 50% of all genera at the time dying off. As far as I can tell, we're not really sure of what the cause is. It could have been a bolide impact, and we just don't have the crater anymore thanks to tectonics.
For the Devonian?
Yeah.
I thought that was. I think it was. Well, from what I understand, the advent of like lignified vascular tissue created, in essence, an arms race for the progymnosperms, and in growing larger, their roots dug deeper into the topsoil than had done by any plants thus far, because most plants have like rhizomes and things like that. They're just kind of sitting on the top. But this basically uprooted minerals that were in the soil, which is then eroded into the water systems. This is then transported down into bodies of water, which cause algal blooms. The algal blooms in turn cause hypoxia and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but
there you go.
So
that was only part of it, though. That was only
that's the Kalwasser. So there's two halves to it, right? There's the Kalwasser event and the Hindenburg event, right? And for Kalwasser, I'm almost positive you're right with that, Jackson. Like I think it's almost certainly at least pinned on plants for a huge portion of that.
Yeah, screw plants.
Yeah, exactly. But then and that eutrophication just really hosed everyone. But then I think there's some debate with the Hindenburg event on whether or not it was a glaciation or a warming, because you can get geologic signatures for both. If I remember correctly, I think they're going with Ice Age right now. But because it might be that there was like localized volcanism, and that's where you're getting this signature from, but they're not sure.
Yeah, it is a messy situation to kind of sift through the chemical traces.
Yeah.
But anyway, right here I've got an example of Devonian rock from the Grand Canyon, and in some places you can find these channels carved into the Moab limestone, and this is about some of the only Devonian rock you can find. It's in the Temple Butte Formation. In some places it's isolated in these channels. In some places it forms its own thick layer, which is cool, because then you can see where the tidal channels originally were, and how as it trailed out into deeper water, you start just seeing more of thicker layers of Devonian limestone.
Sweet. We love
it. Thank you for the correction, by the way, because I couldn't find anything in my small books on it.
What on
the Devonian extinction?
I'm trying to think. Well, there are papers on it on Google Scholar, but the thing that was kind of hard for me to find was it seems like a lot of times they don't differentiate between the Hindenburg and the Kalwasser event. They're just kind of like the Devonian extinction, and so reading about it online kind of makes it hard to tell, like, okay, which part of it are they referring to? And maybe it was more than one.
From what I've seen so far of the five big ones, this is the only one that's not like a borderline. This is late Devonian, not Devonian Carboniferous.
Well, yeah, because there were separate events that were going on, so it's like, a 1-2 punch for them.
The 1-2 punch. Yeah, I pulled up my notes here. I'm trying to find the exact. Yeah. So the entire Devonian extinction took place over the course of 20 to 25 million years. So, it's an extinction, but I think too, if I remember correctly, it was also a weird loss of speciation. Like we get at the end of the Devonian, right? Like normally after mass extinctions, you have huge radiative evolution because all these niches have opened up. But with the Devonian, because it happened so slowly, what ended up happening was you got a lot of creatures and critters looking very similar to one another, because the replacement was so slow. And it didn't allow for sort of this explosion of new forms, which was really weird. And it took quite some time. That's why you have like the Devonian and then the Carboniferous, and then you get the weirdos in the Permian coming and walking around on all their weird squat forms and looking crazy. But
like coated ring.
Oh no, go easy on him.
Oh, I finally found the name of the series I was talking about earlier. It's called Animal Armageddon.
Animal Armageddon.
I think
Yeah,
I've
that
heard
sounds
of that.
familiar. I just don't think I've seen it.
Yeah, I think I know I rip clips from them sometimes, but I don't know that I might have watched them back when Discovery Channel and or Animal Planet was still about animals and or discovering things.
You might remember when the History Channel was about history.
Are you telling me ancient aliens are not history?
I'm telling you that Tanked is not an appropriate animal show.
Hey! You watch your mouth.
Hey,
I
listen,
like Tanked.
you see more human mammals on Tanked than you do fish life. I'm just saying.
You know what? After I'm done with him by the monkey bars, you're next.
What can I say? I haven't seen Big Cat Diary in decades.
I missed that show. That was good.
Big Cat Diary was dope.
You know you're old when you say back in my day, History Channel was about history.
That's true.
I remember actually learning about World War II and not why the pyramids were built by aliens or the reptiles or whoever.
Or not about 20 shows about Pawn Stars or
Hey, you guys are stepping on my toes here.
Listen, I'm getting the vibe that you like a lot of reality television.
Oh heck no. No, I really don't. But I like Pawn Stars because I went there and I got to see the place and I bought a trilobite there.
Yeah, listen, that's actually cool. I can sit here and talk about reality TV, but I am a fervent fan. When I don't seek it out, but when House Hunters is on, I love House Hunters. I love seeing how cool their houses are.
So
God, I can't stand HGTV. Period. I don't know how anyone watches it.
So Jackson, what episode are you on?
In Tanked, I haven't watched it in years, but I loved it.
I meant Pawn Stars. What episode are you on?
I don't actively watch it, but I'll watch it if it comes on.
I meant you said you went to the place. I said what episode are you on?
Oh, no. I went. It was like after 6 when I went, and so they had all gone home. Whatever. We were just like, we were in Vegas coming back from family in California, and we were. I didn't know Tony Reed was over there, and we just went through. We were like, hey, I wonder where the Pawn Star play. Oh, there it went. Let's go in. And so yeah, we went and checked it out. It was really cool. I don't remember how much it cost. I still have the receipt because it's pretty cool, but I don't remember. I apologize.
Jackson, I will fight you though if you do talk trash about HGTV. I will watch My Lottery Dream Home over and over, and the show premise is this guy David. He's the host, and he just eggs people who have won recently quite a bit of money into buying houses that they can't afford.
That sounds awful. That's like the most immoral thing I've ever heard.
It is the pinnacle of modern hedonism. It's
oh my God.
it's like watching societal collapse in action. It's like a train wreck, though. I can't stop watching.
It makes you appreciate the coronavirus.
Oh,
so it really does.
Do you know what each of these numbers are?
Yes, tell us, Colton.
I have no idea. I just like the plants.
They're in the wild. It's wild numbers.
Yeah, they're their own
taxonomic. 1 through 10 all in the same place at the same time.
They're in their own taxonomic group.
I think that's an Archaeopteris number 6, isn't it?
Yeah.
These are more like rock growing plants than dirt growing plants.
Yeah, this is where they started having their roots just get in there.
Yeah, the weird thing too that's interesting is that prior to the plants, you didn't have winding rivers to the extent that we have today, because there was nothing to hold back the banks. So they were like weird, spready outy type things. That's the scientific term.
That's a weird.
You see more of those after the Permian extinction. You see a lot of those deposits because there was no plant life.
Yeah, the cat killed them all again.
That's very interesting. I really never thought about that, but that's very interesting.
Yeah, it's a weird mental image to kind of
to think of just like a whole flood plain just like all the time. That is weird. Yeah.
And now
very
we come
unstable, dangerous land.
And now we come to the period of 50 foot. No, not 50 foot, but pretty big flies.
Ooh, yes, we
Yeah.
love our
Carboniferous period. I'm sorry I reused this image. It's just I was trying to find good examples where I could. So the Carboniferous period is actually, and I can't remember why this is done, but in America, we treat it as two separate periods, the
Hate
Mississippian and the Pennsylvanian.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah, he made this chart. I asked him about that. I'm like, are they like epoch? It was like two different epochs or something.
Nope, they are the same period, just split in two, only in North America because we like to be different.
That's one of my least favorite things about this continent, honest to God. And it's a long list.
But the name Carboniferous means coal-bearing, and it's appropriate because this is where we find almost all of our coal deposits.
We find the floating forest there.
Tim Clary had a good paper showing that the distribution doesn't fit with coal deposits. I'm just going to say that. Or the floating forest thing doesn't agree with it. So even creationists are starting to go after it now.
Color me shocked. I'm shocked to find that there is gambling in this establishment.
But the name was first coined by geologist William Conybeare. I probably butchered that name. And along with William Phillips in 1822. They were some of the first to come up with that name. This is where you start seeing amphibians as some of the dominant land vertebrates, although arthropods are still quite common. Arthropods also start growing extremely large because we start getting very high atmospheric oxygen concentration.
And that's why the amphibians grow bigger, so they eat them.
And this is also where we start seeing the first amniotes and the first synapsids.
Yeah. Go us.
Well, since technically they're both the same. Well, technically, synapsids are amniotes.
Technically, yes.
I imagine too, Vindalia, that some of our amphibious friends weren't getting larger to eat the arthropods, but to keep from being eaten by them.
Well, that's true too. But unfortunately, our ancestors weren't so. Our line wasn't so lucky at the time.
We've been underdogs for quite a while.
Have you guys seen some of the ones that are like giant crocodile like amphibians, like Baggy Herpeton?
Oh,
yeah, they're scary looking.
Yeah. It's like a freaking gharial or something.
Coolosuchus is Permian, right? Or no, Coolosuchus.
No, that's late Cretaceous.
Coolosuchus
is late Cretaceous.
Never mind that.
He's like a weird late surviving temnospondyl or whatever.
Yeah, that's
like really late surviving.
But temnospondyls do emerge in the Carboniferous, right? I'm right on that. Yeah?
I think you're correct on that. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Oh, I just learned about this phrase very recently: the rainforest collapse.
Yes, collapse in the rainforest.
Yep,
and that's the way we do it today.
Breaking up, and this reduced atmospheric oxygen started making all these big arthropods. They couldn't afford to keep their size, and so some of them started getting smaller, and others just died off because they couldn't keep up with the change.
That's when they got more dry land, and our people into like, hey, the water. There's less water. We can walk away from the water now.
Yep. Although this was also a time where we experienced very large glaciations. The Carboniferous glaciations were pretty big. And you also started getting some major mountain building because this is when Pangea actually starts to come together.
So the red wall, the Mississippian, and the
so the red wall, the Surprise Canyon Formation, this big channel cut, the sediment filling it is Carboniferous. It's one of the Carboniferous layers of the Grand Canyon. And then overlying it is, I believe, the Supai group. I believe is what it is.
So, Colton, let me ask you, as from kind of a layman perspective when it comes to geology, what do we know about sort of the interior of the continent at this time? Because I know it's considered to be pretty arid and almost inhospitable. Is that typically still what we're seeing in the literature?
During the rainforest collapse, or during the
just
Carboniferous in general?
Just in the Carboniferous in general, because I know we've got massive land masses kind of converging into one another.
Yeah, I know that at least significant portions of it were desert at the time.
Right.
And then you sort of had closer to the coast, you started getting these massive rainforests, which where we all our coal. I don't know how inhospitable it was, though.
Yeah, the only reason I'm thinking is because I've heard it said before that weather patterns would be really knocked off base by having such massive land masses to cross.
That sounds about right.
So it would be kind of weird. Organisms would have to be rather specialized to live in the interior where things were so wonky all the time. But I don't know. That's why I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how inhospitable the interior would have been.
Right. This is the time give or take. This is the time when we had the most oxygen on the planet, give or take.
Yeah, this was about when our planet peaked.
Like, use some of that right now.
Could use some of that right now.
Well, it was like a 21% increase, wasn't it, compared to today, wasn't it?
Ooh, I think okay, so we're like what, 21 now currently? 21%?
Maybe I'm getting that totally wrong. Okay, well,
Because I think it was about 35%. I think
gotcha.
somewhere around there. What I know is that it was such high concentrations of oxygen that you could literally take water-soaked wood, dunk it in more water, and then put a lighter next to it, and it could almost spontaneously combust.
Oh my
The
god!
oxygenation was dangerous. So you actually had, during this time, a lot of worldwide wildfires because nothing could control them. There was too much oxygen fueling them.
Wait,
Oh my god!
are you saying this is the time when the T-Rex could have ignited its nostrils? I'm feeling it.
Oh my god! Parasaurolophus is coming
Yes,
about.
the Gish Parasaurolophus that breathes fire. Oh my god!
So I guess,
Well, they all did live.
how do they explain the oxygen? That's what I want to know.
Well, Jackson, they all live the same time, you know.
Yeah, good point. Good point. He's got you there.
It's got me there.
Okay. It hurts.
Yeah, I'm getting chest pain. Let's keep going.
That just might be the COVID.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, listen.
Ophiacodon for the win!
They're so cute. We got a little arthropleurodon walking around here too.
Yep, giant millipedes.
Griffin flies up in the sky.
Hey, that's one of our relatives up right in the foreground, which is kind of neat.
As small and sad as ever.
Oh no, I was referring to the Ophiacodon.
Ooh.
Because he's part of the Pelycosaur group, so they're like the stem synapsids.
It's like saying,
Very
Our-
nice.
"Our time's coming. Our time's coming. Our time's coming."
Yeah.
Yes, see that? You'll notice that's what our ancestors did. We kind of hid there for a while, always trying to keep down low, and now here we are, destroying the planet.
Yeah.
Our time has come.
I will stay on the low end of the food chain, and one day my ancestors will walk on the moon.
And
Exactly.
thus began the war between the diapsids and the synapsids.
Yep.
True.
Okay, so then we reach the Permian. Again, this was named by Roderick Murchison after studying outcrops in the region of the Perm in Russia.
Hey, somewhere that isn't Britain for once.
Following the rainforest collapse, large areas of desert started dominating the continent of Pangaea, the supercontinent of Pangaea. Climate varied over this period between warmer and cooler periods, but it was generally quite dry regardless of the temperature. There was not a lot of active rainfall. Amniotes rose to dominance here. And this is where we finally get the worst mass extinction our planet has ever faced. The Permian Triassic extinction event. Commonly called the Great Dying. 96% of marine organisms and 70% of terrestrial species died off during this event. From what I could gather, it is thought currently to have been brought on in 3 major pulses, where there may have been 1 or more large bolide impacts, followed by eruptions of the Siberian Deacon Trap supervolcanoes, and then climate change finally induced by methane release from the deep ocean. This was not a good time to live. This was a very nasty period of Earth history.
And our Gorgonops were just they were just on the crest. They were on the rise.
Yeah.
Taken out in their period of power.
And the shadows, the dinosaurs were saying, "It's our time now."
This
That's true.
This was a bad time. I don't even have words to describe how awful this must have been. The ecosystems were destroyed, which is why the Triassic that follows was not the most abundant period either.
We do get some cool, weird crocodilomorphs, though.
Yes, they start making their appearance. They start taking over, but
apparently,
go phytosaurs.
apparently the marine life had it worse than the land life.
Yeah, the mix of acidity being brought on by those eruptions, adding like carbon dioxide to the oceans, plus the methane, Not good.
Not a great situation for the lads.
Or the lasses.
That's
No.
why there's no animals here.
Oh, okay. This is my dad. Okay, I swear this was not a jab at him being as old as the Permian. But I posted it because it's a personal picture I have of Permian rock units in the Grand Canyon. This is what we took on our vacation there. You have the Hermit Shale and then the Coconino Boundary.
Oh, nice.
Right. Both of those are Permian rock units.
The picture is to prove that hardly anything survived. There's no animals at all.
I also wanted to take this picture because Whitmore doesn't like those big mud cracks, and I thought they would be interesting to get a direct photo of.
Every photo that's taken of those mud cracks is like a dagger in his heart. He's just moseying around his home, and he's like, they've done it again.
I mean, and here's the thing: his work wasn't the worst I've seen. I mean, if he wants to call these like sand injections instead of just filled in mud cracks, he made a decent enough case for it, I feel. The problem is he strawmanned what actualism would expect, and he was trying to construe it into a case that would be negative for an ancient Earth's view, and it just wasn't. He was like trying to argue that the water table would have been necessarily so low that this would have been impossible. Therefore, only the flood could leave this. And it's like, no, that's not how that works.
That sounds about right. Oh.
So then we get to the Triassic. The Permian-Triassic boundary marks the beginning of the Mesozoic era, and the Triassic is the shortest period of this era. The Mesozoic also happens to mean middle life. So the Cambrian up until the Permian is what's called the Paleozoic, which is the early life. Mesozoic is middle life, and then Cenozoic is recent life. So the Triassic was named by Frederick von Alberti in 1834, and the name comes from the fact that he could identify 3 unique rock units where he was studying it in Germany, hence Triassic. The age ranges from about 252 to 201 million years ago, so it spans about a 51 million year time frame. Therapsids and archosaurs were the predominant terrestrial vertebrates at this time. Towards the late Triassic, you start getting some of the first dinosaurs, and this is where we start seeing some of the first true mammals also making their appearance. The climate was very hot and was very dry, and there were lots of deserts spanning much of Pangaea as a result of this brutal extinction event this period was trying to recover from. Towards the late Triassic, things began getting more humid, however, because Pangaea began to split. The end is marked by the Triassic-Jurassic extinction event, which is what paved the way for the dominance of the dinosaurs. From what I can gather, it was thought to be either caused by bolide impact or volcanic activity altering the climate.
This was the first true, really bad 1-2 punch because that was the first one. 2 major cities were next together. Like, we survived. Let's go. Oh, damn.
Yeah, one more, and you'll know that's a trend. Although some of that could be argued to be an artifact over the fact that we tend to just use mass extinctions as, okay, let's cut this off and make a new one.
Yeah,
wait. What if geologic time doesn't exist?
Oh,
so why do we see these? Are we just faking all of this?
Yes, you're not even real. You're an alien or a reptoid alien. Either way.
Yes, I am. Actually, I'm a fallen angel, and you can't prove I'm not.
That's true. You can't prove it.
So when you ask me, was I there? Yes, I was. You can't prove I'm not.
You know what? You got me there. I can't argue with the facts.
Anyways, that aside, we got a joke, or we got a example of the lower Triassic Moenkopi Formation from Zion Canyon. I probably butchered that, and I'm sorry that I did. But this is part of the Grand Staircase. So the Grand Canyon doesn't have any Triassic rock in it. But the great thing is you can just kind of move further out into Utah, and you just start seeing the layers that were eroded away.
Oh my God, you're right. There's a formation.
Bryce Canyon?
No, there's a big Triassic formation. You're right. That is outside. It's like because you have the Grand Canyon, and then you have next to it. Oh, the Chinle Formation. There we go. I got it.
Yep, that's it.
Hot dog. I got one. I get a gold star. Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'll put one on the physical copy of the book when it gets here.
Thank you.
And to answer Anime's question, it says this is a video. We're live right now.
Have you guys seen Dapper Dino's comment? Get wrecked, Earth, the Permian.
life after the Permian and the Triassic. It's like, oh, we're doing so great. Hold up.
I'm about to ruin this man's whole career.
I'm about to destroy this man's whole career.
This Archosaurus' whole career.
God damn it. No, let us truck on. I can stay for about 15 more minutes, and then I think we're probably going to I'm back on family dinner time.
Let's start
the next 250 million years in 15 minutes.
Yes, we're going to start going through this faster because I want Erica to see the whole misconception stuff that I get.
Okay. Yes, I want to see it.
Okay. Go. Okay. Illustration of the Triassic. There it is. Go.
Dinosaurs.
Okay. So that's the Navajo sandstone. That's a Jurassic formation in the Grand Staircase. Okay. So Jurassic period.
Sorry.
Jurassic. Can I go?
Yeah.
Okay. So the Jurassic period spans about 56 million years, named after the Jura Mountains located in the European Alps. Limestone from this period was first identified in this location. It featured Pangaea splitting into Laurasia and Gondwana, transforming many Triassic deserts into lush rainforests. Dinosaurs came to dominate the Earth's landmass during this period. Marine reptiles also start taking over the oceans. First true birds make their appearance here, as do the first true lizards. Therian mammals and placental mammals also start taking off.
This is my favorite time of the Allosauruses.
Aww.
Yeah, so then we just got the Navajo sandstone. And there's an illustration of it.
Yay!
Pretty dinosaurs.
They're so cute.
Clever girl.
We reached the Cretaceous, which was about 145 to 66 million years ago. So it's been about 79 million years. This was the final period of the Mesozoic, first defined by Jean de Omalius de Halloy. God, I cannot pronounce French names whatsoever.
No, that was close. That was close.
De Alloy.
I know.
They don't pronounce the H.
Yeah.
So
they don't
the name that he gave it is actually derived from the Latin word from chalk, which is creta, because he identified extensive chalk formations. The climate was relatively warm. You had very high sea levels. North America was split into two areas by the Western Interior Seaway. I forgot to add the picture. I'm sorry.
Oh my god.
I'm sorry. I forgot that I had that.
The most fun ones.
Sorry. Yeah. Look up the Western Interior Seaway. You'll see it's a kind of cool thing.
Wait, was there events between the Jurassic and Cretaceous? No one ever talks about that period.
No, I don't believe it was an extinction event.
No, it was just kind of, if you read the book by Broussard, The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs, he just kind of trails off from the late Jurassic to the early Cretaceous because basically nothing happens.
It's mostly just a faunal changeover that we're like, okay, we'll draw a line here.
And the real name of Jurassic Park was Cretaceous Park.
True.
Okay, this is where we start getting our flowering plants and all sorts of stuff. And then you get the big old KPG extinction event at 66 million years ago, where a big asteroid hit the Earth, and you can find all sorts of tsunami deposits left over from it, covering most of America. The crater is still found in the Yucatan Peninsula. It's called Chicxulub, I believe is how it's pronounced. And it's marked by a very big iridium anomaly that covers most of the world.
I love the iridium anomaly. The iridium band is so... I love that. Go continue. Sorry, I'm gonna go on a monologue. So
there's an illustration of how horrifying it would have been to live through it. So then we reached the Paleogene after the extinction event that killed off the dinosaurs. This was the start of the Cenozoic, the so-called Age of Mammals, and this is what we are still in. We're not in the Paleogene period. Sorry, bad phrasing there, but we are still in the Cenozoic. This went from 66 to 23 million years ago. Originally was part of the Tertiary, but this was eventually split up into the Paleogene and Neogene. Tertiary isn't really used in professional literature anymore. The climate recovered from this bolide impact that killed the dinosaurs, and the climate was much cooler and drier compared to the Cenozoic, compared to the Mesozoic. Because there were so many niches left open after the extinction of the dinosaurs, mammals start diversifying like crazy to fill them. You start getting grasses here, although there is some limited evidence for grass in the late Cretaceous, but it really takes off here in the Paleogene.
And this is where I'm thinking Erica's line of animals comes into being around
Here
here.
come our previous
Primates start showing up around here.
We love those guys.
Also, you got some of my favorite animals, the whales, start showing up.
What about elephants? Elephants are pretty cool.
Okay, look, I'm turned off by that one that has its mouth being like a shovel.
Oh,
You know what? We're gonna. All right, fine. First one with you, then I schedule another one with her, then the next one's with you again.
So I like elephants overall, dude.
Oh,
It's
it's too late. We're done.
okay.
This is real fast. This is why they renamed it from KT to KPG now.
Because they changed it from tertiary to Paleogene.
And his name is Amybelodon. Thank you.
I've clearly upset someone.
Platybelodon. That's another one. They're
I'm taking away your gold star if you keep threatening me with
And
violence.
how can he get the tubers without the shovel mouth?
We've got future debates right now coming up.
Yeah, exactly.
I will debate you on how elephants are awesome. Thank you.
I can show you the pictures of me washing an elephant if that makes you feel any better. To prove I don't hate elephants.
Kind of cool.
These are the horses that didn't exist, or what they call the.
Oh, they're not horses, trust me, even though the Ark has them.
Peleotheres is what they're called.
But I mean,
But you can see how, like, in these these reconstructive illustrations, how things are starting to change. You're starting to get more modern-looking life now.
oh, and this is the last of the dinosaur, the terror birds around this time, I guess.
Oh, the terror birds. Oof.
Yep.
No like.
I'd consider ostriches terror birds today.
They are horrifying, that's for sure.
Like still trying to hold off the time of dinosaurs. Like we're still relevant. We're still relevant.
Yeah, they.
No, you're not.
I'm expecting after the human extinction here from COVID-19. I'm expecting a big resurgence of our ancient theropods in the form of the pigeon.
The dodo's gonna make a return.
Exactly, big and powerful pigeons all across the land.
So then you reach the Neogene, which spanned from about 20.5 to 2.5 million years. Coined in 1853 by Austrian paleontologist Moritz Hornes. Probably butchered that, and I'm sorry. The upper boundary is actually very hard to differentiate from the quaternary because there isn't really an extinction event that marks it. In fact, the only real extinction event that can be seen between the Paleogene and the Neogene is foraminifera. That tends to be how we distinguish them, little microfossils.
Sad day.
So
go ahead.
So I was like, Erica, so where were our primates in here?
Are we? I don't know my geologic ages well enough. I know in the sort of. Well, I know them, I guess, by, I think you called them periods. Oligocene is, and Miocene is when we see the rise of the apes.
Yeah, about 6 million years ago. Or no, that's our hominid specifically.
Yeah.
I don't know where apes came in, but it was before
They I believe apes would be, I mean, it depends on which ones we're looking at between sort of the earlier Drypithecines and sort of our Oreopithecids as well. 40 million years ago so that previous one would have been, I guess that's that would be the Eocene. So those would have been our first old world monkeys and like Egyptopithecus and things like that. So the Neogene has our apes all the way up pretty much until the Australopithecines. So we've got to answer your question, Vandali, we've got a pretty broad range of primates hanging out in this time.
And one of the things that actually happened during this time frame was North and South America joined at Panama. And this cut off warm ocean circulation between the Pacific and the Atlantic. And this is part of what led to the global cooling that started the Quaternary Ice Ages.
We opened it back up 100 years ago. Here we go.
Look at them.
Look at those elephants back there. Them must be some real elephants.
Oh, I've got my eyes on our boys up close. Or
I
actually,
like the little dog bears at the bottom.
oh, they're cute too.
Dog bears. Is that Amphicyonidae or it's
Cyanids, yeah.
okay, there's Amphicyonidae and then there's Hemicyonidae, which is the dog. There's bear dogs and dog bears.
Yeah,
I don't remember
the
what
bear dogs are Amphicyonids and the dog bears are the other one.
Okay, Hemicyonidae.
And then finally we reach the Quaternary period, which is some people consider it to be the current one. There's some debate, which I have a brief slide on after. But this is the shortest period of the Cenozoic. It spans from 2.5 million years ago to, depending on who you're talking to, either 500,000 years ago or we might still be in it.
Interesting.
Named by Giovanni Arduino in 1759, where he declared that strata of northern Italy could be divided into 4 orders, hence quaternary. Marked mostly by cyclic changes of cyclic glaciations covering that period, and this is when modern humans start showing up.
Look at these very feminine females in the back breastfeeding her young. We've got, it really truly does take a village in this time period.
Yeah, censor bar here.
I'm more concerned why they're leaving such a giant moose near
Right.
them. Moose are incredibly dangerous.
I wouldn't mess with it. And that's actually the size of that bird there could easily, we don't have a great relationship with large birds and our young.
Yeah.
Even today, have you seen the videos of eagles trying to take babies? It's terrible.
No, but I 100% believe that. 100%.
Are these like
They're trying to get revenge.
So do we know would these be like the
I believe that's an illustration of Homo erectus. I didn't check.
Erectus would be my guess. Just, I mean, the thing is there's no telling based on what when this was actually drawn, and sort of our specimens that we have available. But
yeah, I just pulled this off Google Images.
Yeah, typically
This is a real life drawing of a village in the Quaternary.
Yeah, this is a picture.
Still image. Yeah.
Okay, so then we got the supposed Anthropocene period. Depends on who you talk to as to whether or not this is a real thing. There are proposed lower boundaries for it from the Quaternary, which can range from the agricultural revolution all the way up to the atomic age. It's not really a settled unit, although there is a lot of growing support for it, especially with the rise of anthropogenic climate change.
And now
it would basically depend. The name basically comes from recognizing the time when we start having a severe impact on the planet.
And now we're in the internet period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read an interesting take on the Anthropocene. It was either in Sapiens or it was in the Ends of the World, but they were essentially saying that geologically speaking, we're actually in the more tapered, as far as extinctions go, we're in the tapered end of the mass extinction. The damage was done about 10,000 to 20,000 years ago with the loss of all the big megafauna, just disappearing from the record. But geologically speaking, obviously the climate change is another thing entirely. But we've dealt a hefty blow to biodiversity just in the past 50,000 years.
So
yeah.
What side of the argument are you on? Are you on the 2 periods or 1 period side?
I'm for the Anthropocene, and I'd prefer to mark it around the Industrial Revolution, because that's like when we started really being bad for this planet. And if the distinguisher is when we start harming the planet, I think that's where it should be drawn.
That's fair enough.
You humans are a virus.
Thank you, Corona.
Agent.
All right. Geologic misconceptions. There are a lot of them that I've heard, and unfortunately, almost all of these are creationist in nature. There's only one that I've heard that doesn't pertain to it, and that's the first. So the general misconception I hear is that, doesn't each geologic period match with a certain type of rock? No. I mean, some of them might be named after a specific rock that was first discovered in them, like the Cretaceous being associated with the chalk layers, but all periods have layers of different types. I mean, there's no one-to-one correlation. There might in some places be a very selective preference or bias to one or another, but you find examples of almost all rock types from almost all periods. So another misconception is that the geologic column was laid down by a great flood. This isn't true. Early geologists did believe this, and they went out setting to try to prove it. However, it was abandoned due to evidence contradicting this hypothesis. Things like angular unconformities, repeated unique mass extinctions, desert deposits, massive wildfire deposits of fusane, glacial tillites, and other things long ruled out the notion that a global flood laid down the geologic record. If a global flood did happen, it was not responsible for the rock record. It was quiet.
I hear you. La 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 la.
Another claim I hear a lot is that the geologic column is just a construct. It doesn't exist in any one place. No, this isn't true. Places like the Williston Basin in North Dakota do have examples from every geologic period. You can just drill right through and you find them in the appropriate order. So then you get a backtrack of, well, okay, for it to be complete, it has to be over 100 miles thick. No, this is wrong. This goes back to a creationist named John Woodmarapp and is a complete shifting of the goalposts. Young Earth creationists who didn't like the geologic column used to argue that you could never find a single place on Earth with a unit from each period. When presented with those examples, they changed the goalposts to, oh, well, it has to be, there has to be an area on Earth that has the thickest part of each rock unit, which is nonsense. Let's say that you have a basin that never experiences any erosion. Even if that happens, deposition across the Earth is not going to be homogeneous. So you would never expect, even granting no erosion, the thickest part of each period to be in one place. It's completely unreasonable. And y'all know that, God forbid we did, they'd say that even if a single grain was missing, it's not complete.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, there are some more reasonable young Earth creationists like Andrew Snelling who accept the column as a real sequence in need of explanation. And you'll notice it's always the trained geologists on their side that support the geologic column. Yeah, it's always the trained ones who support it. And it's always the self-taught ones like Woodmarapp who deny it.
Yeah, shocking.
Shocked.
Okay.
Appalled.
So going back to our earlier talk on radiometric dating, there's the obvious claim that it's flawed, relies on untestable assumptions. You cannot trust it. No. Radiometric dating is actually very reliable. Almost all assumptions can be eliminated using things like isochron dating. However, let's say you don't have isochron dating. Let's say you have to take these assumptions into account when doing your calculations. The great thing is you can use concordance testing to see if your assumptions were actually valid. You can take different methods and line them up and see if they give the same date for a particular sample. If they do, that means your assumptions were correct, because contamination or changes to half-lives or all sorts of different confounding variables would affect each system differently. You can't seriously argue that contamination affected each sample in a particular way to make it coincidentally line up. That just doesn't work. So if you have concordance, you can test your assumptions. And you don't even need that anymore because, again, isochrons. So then there's this argument that I've heard before that is just painful to hear. It's this argument, again from Woodmarapp, that radiometric dating just spews out random numbers. It's meaningless noise. Geologists happen to just cherry pick the ones they want and then nice concordance. Yeah. No.
That argument didn't work.
Yeah. If you believe this, you need to stop reading Woodmarapp, because running samples is extremely expensive. It can cost several $1 million just to do a detailed study. We don't have the money to be getting 99% crap random numbers and then selectively picking the 1% that agree with our predetermined. We do not have the economic ability to do that. It just don't work. And nobody's out here trying to fake evidence to make young Earth creationism look.
We only are getting paid by big geologists or whatever they.
I have been told that I am paid by conspiracists or by conspirators.
Hey, if George Soros is funding big evolution, where's my shield check?
Yeah,
I'm out here. I'm out here making videos. I'm
like
waiting.
NASA's paying the Globers, I
don't shill for free, baby. I need some of that sweet.
So then,
money.
Then we have a claim that I run into a lot, and it's that historical geology in particular is just storytelling. It's untestable, and it's not science. This ain't the case. Geologic models of the past make testable predictions about what evidentiary traces we would expect these unseen events to produce. You can then test those predictions by going out and looking for your so-called smoking gun. Obviously, if you can say, well, if an event happened in the unwitnessed past, and it happened in a specific way, which would leave a specific trace, looking for that trace is the test. Geologist Kevin Hankey, I hope he's watching.
That guy's in the chat. I just noticed that. I was like, wait, what?
He is? Kevin Hankey's in the chat? Oh,
he says Woodmarapp has a master's in geology.
Well,
he's of course.
I'm sorry for
very
calling him
self-taught.
self-taught, but I don't respect
But
it.
I just noticed that because I was like, wait a minute, hold on, what is this?
But as Kevin Henke put in an essay response to Ord, facies and other sedimentary models actually allow geologists to make predictions about ancient depositional environments and locate the predicted rocks. The ability of these models to make predictions shows they're basically correct, and he's very right about that. The fact that we can go out and figure out what rocks should look like if a certain environment was responsible for depositing them, and we can verify those predictions, shows that we're not just making up stories.
Allegedly.
And then there's the lowest tier argument of you weren't there, you don't know what happened, we need an eyewitness to see it. Well, actually,
The rocks are there.
the rocks were there.
Oh!
If you guys are interested, please buy this book. This book is amazing. I'm about halfway done with it, and it's got some beautiful teardowns of the geologic arguments by Snelling and Woodmarap and all sorts of.
You're gonna make me cry.
Erica, where's your kazoo?
Oh, I know my kazoo's up there.
And Jackson, the little something I wanted to surprise you with, because this surprised me when I was reading your book.
Oh.
You know, It's Dem Titans, the guy with that League of Reason post on Chromosome 2?
Yeah.
That was me. That was me in high school.
What?
That was 16-year-old me in the back of a military academy classroom with nothing to do.
Oh my god! I haven't seen RJ post in a while. TD Lane, tell RJ. Oh my god!
So that's me. Unfortunately, League of Reason died, but I still have a copy of that posting up on Rational Skepticism.
Sir, our king.
Yeah, and I want to thank David Levin for helping me out with that.
Oh my gosh!
Because
Wow.
he's the one that taught me that exons can mutate and create longer transcripts.
That is the you know what? That's we should definitely put that in the next one because we've already started on the next one. So
before we get go, if you have to, if your channel shows you want to plug right now.
Oh,
I don't have a YouTube channel.
but why
I'm
not?
just on Reddit.
yeah,
I don't know.
I know.
I don't have the energy to make giant YouTube videos. I have a blog.
No, trust me. It's really. I'm the lazy. Oh, RJ is here. Yes, RJ says thank you, sir. It's really not as hard as you think. I know Erica does it. Erica's real extra here. I just do voiceover, some slides. That's all I do.
Well,
Listen.
I've considered it, but
Listen, I'm just saying, all of the stuff. My budget for my videos is about I probably have spent $50 on my YouTube channel. It was just on a mic and a webcam. Like, I use a free software, OBS. You know, you can do Colton. I'll help you out, dude. Come on, you should do it. You should be the
One of us. One of
In the
us.
words of Chancellor Palpatine, do it.
I have said this before, so I'm not to take credit or anything, but I'm taking credit. So
No, I mean your videos are great. It's the flip back and forth between the pictures and your narration is great and everything. And people don't need to see my face. You don't need to see my face currently, but
no, I do it because the real reason is because I am extra. That's
RJ also as well.
sell it.
So Erica, what's coming up on your channel?
Oh, what I was actually going to say was tomorrow, if all goes well, in the evening, I'm going to be having a conversation with Aaron Raw about primates. So I'm very excited about that.
I'd love to have him on this channel, but I'm too low on the totem pole.
No.
Right now.
No. When I had fewer than 100 subscribers, and I said, "Will you come on my channel?" And he said, "Sure. Just give me a time and date." He'll talk to anybody.
It's so easy, and just to chat with. I reached out and I had to reschedule on him 2 times because at first was when I was flying over, and then the second was supposed to be last evening, but I was so sick, and then he let me reschedule. And of course, standing was not as accommodating in that regard. But I get he hyped it up. But
I just can't tell you. It's I'm still it's blowing my mind within blowing my mind that was.
That took me the better part of about 6 months.
Oh man, you wrecked him, good sir. You absolutely wrecked him. You wrecked him.
The thing is, I can't even remember what 90% of the arguments were at this point because it was back in 2015.
Well, you beat him so badly that years later, people are still referring to you. Think about that.
Are they? I haven't. I mean, other than you guys, obviously, but
Giant book refers to you.
yeah, that when I did see my username, I was like, whoa! I've made an impact.
Colton, this is why you need a channel, because you're a good communicator. That's half of this battle. You know?
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, Erica, if you can, give him my email address or something.
Yeah, I'll drop a line. I mean, really and truly, he's very. I think he has his email in most of his videos. It's.
Yeah, he's real. Or you can message him on Twitter. You know, all that stuff. He's very easy to talk to. He's very chill.
I'll try again. But that's your big thing about you, Jackson. Any big videos coming up for you?
Actually, Raw Matt will be appearing in the next one. He'll be appearing non-voluntarily, which is going to be hilarious because, oh boy, I'm so excited for the next video. I can't even tell you guys. It's we finally are done with Long Story Short. Oh god, it was so boring.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. I got through like half of those videos and I just couldn't keep going because he just keeps repeating the same thing.
He does. He literally did not understand like a single one of our arguments. I think the only one that he kind of realized was bogus was his platypus one, which he even said was like, even in like a backhanded way, he kind of let it go. He couldn't just be like, okay, I was wrong. He had to be like, well, if I'm wrong, well, then you also have to give up homologies. It's like, no, that's not how that argument works. And so, yeah, no, it was
wrong. Really, you're double wrong.
Basically, but yeah, no, we've got the next one is going to be, it's almost goofy. It's like, if you've seen my creation museums video where I talk about how like the Museum of the Bible, like basically stole a bunch of Dead Sea Scrolls, which turned out to be fakes. And so,
damn.
Yeah, it was. They imported them illegally, and then they turned out to be fakes, which was the best irony.
And this is the one in Washington.
In Washington D.C., yeah. And so that one was kind of along the same lines as the next one. It's not like we're not going to be picking apart like a serious argument like chromosome 2, like chromosome 2 or something like that. We're really just laughing at creationists in the next one. This is going to be real fun. I'm excited.
I still could not believe, because I was still coming out of like the young Earth creationism, and I was just drifting away because I'd been comfortable with rocks. I'm like, well, let me look at genetics. Let me do something different. And I hear Ken Miller's video on chromosome 2. I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. Let's see what the debunking is. I'm like, okay, there's some gene here. Let me just go to this paper, and that is a gene that belongs to a telomere gene family.
Yeah.
Yep, it's a pseudogene. It's a telomere specific pseudogene family.
Literally, literally have pictures of it lighting up at the ends of chromosomes in humans and great apes, with the only exception being chromosome 2. And I'm like, you really gonna play me like this? Really, I mean, Tompkins?
Lest we even touch on the fact that barring the fusion itself, the 2A and 2B portions also match up with what you see in the flavonoids. Like, I mean, we always forget to mention that, but that's like just the icing on the cake.
I just hate that his argument ultimately comes down to it's impossible to evolve a like alternative endpoint. Like, that's what his argument has to come down to. There's no way you could get an alternative end point after the fusion happens. And it's like, no, that happens all the time. Yeah. They're not hard to evolve.
And you know, they always run into these problems too, especially with like the equids, because we see chromosomal fusion occur in the equids as well. And then they're like, no, not like that.
Yeah, it's there was actually a fusion in Pseudomonas, which resulted in a novel variant, which was adaptive. So it conferred an adaptive benefit. So
I wish I had seen Ruhif's video, although I don't think it was out at the time. Because the one argument I don't think I addressed was the claim that, oh, we're the only ones that have it. And it turns out that there's like several examples in pigs and zebras and all sorts of stuff. It's telomere fusions.
It's not even like, it's not rare at all. I mean,
and I'm just wondering, how does he get this low quality?
I think it's their compartmentation, you know, of their brain.
Like, I can't, even with the whole Tortugan framework, because I'm trying to interpret it within that beautiful model you guys have.
That's
And
RJ,
it's
by
like,
the way.
and it's
That's
like
RJ.
still, how do you look at a paper that has it lighting up as a telomere specific family, except this one, and still go ahead and say, yep, that's evidence against it being a past telomere site?
Well,
How?
it's you look at people like Dwayne Gish. We don't talk about it in this. RJ talks about it in his book Slam Dunk. He does a whole book on the reptile mammal transition. Gish could read a paper talking about the reptile mammal transition, just going this whole summary on the whole thing with fossils and all the steps and all that. He'll pick out little sentence here, little sentence there, little sentence here, and construct this narrative that's like, if it's the sentence where they say, well, we don't really know how this part exactly happened, but we have this part here and we have this part here and we can kind of fill in the gap. He'll be like, aha, see, even they admit they don't know everything, and he'll, yeah.
This reminds me
really,
of
sorry, really fast. Plug my finger fast. And from my future videos, in honor of being trapped inside the house, I am playing a video game of teenagers being trapped inside a school by a killer teddy bear.
That's
beautiful.
beautiful.
By the way, please leave us a comment on Amazon. Please do. Please leave us a review.
I think I did.
Did you? Okay. I haven't checked it, but thank you.
Yeah,
I got far enough into it where it was like, okay, I already know where this is going. I felt good enough giving you guys a 5-star.
Like I said, in your future Saturdays, you guys are free. Love to have any of you back on.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Whatever. Like we can break down subjects. We can break down the primate subject. We can break down the rock subject.
I can rant for a solid 10 minutes on how Tompkins had a complete meltdown on Reddit.
Oh, you know what, Fulton? I would be more than happy to join in on that because Tompkins and Jeanson are very special places in my heart for just sheer dishonesty.
They're completely different for me. I think Tompkins is the kind who just sits there and seethes about how he's just trying to figure out some way to feel better and like provide some sort of refutation. And I think Jeanson's honestly predatory. Like,
Jeanson has admitted it, but at the same time, I mean, Jeanson's basically come out and been like, yes, I am a shill. I got my degree.
Yeah, Jeanson actually came out and admitted that he wanted to, quote unquote, abuse his degree for creation.
Well, that's like Jonathan Wells. Jonathan Wells did the same thing at the Discovery Institute. He said, I became a molecular or cellular biologist, whatever it was, just to destroy Darwinism. He's on record as saying that, So.
Yeah.
Well,
it's hilarious that LSS comes along and is like, look at how objective we're being about the science. The guy whose book you're channeling for this video said he wants to destroy Darwinism. There's not even an illusion of objectivity here. What are you talking about?
Yeah, in many papers too, they actually leave a section open for you to disclose potential biases or things like that. And here you've got peer reviewers, quote unquote, peer reviewers of the creationist journal that are all operating under an ulterior motive. It's absolutely wild.
Erica, I don't know why this just came back to me, but remember our good old boy Armitage and his whole RNA and his dinosaur fossil?
Yeah,
a video about him.
I found out that apparently the kind of RNA he was trying to get stains for is known to have a half-life on the order of weeks.
No.
Yeah.
That's around for a little longer.
Somebody on the subreddit commented it. I can pull it up and I'll
absolute rarity of a self roast of this nature. Can you even imagine?
Oh man, that's absolutely beautiful. Oh my
God. I don't understand, man. It's weird.
I did a whole video because he's a pathological liar too, because he claims it. I did a video about him because there were some articles that had come out at the time. People were asking me to do a whole thing about him. Well, he did a video where he's like at some creationist studio or whatever, talking for about half an hour about the whole trial and everything. He's like, oh, well, it couldn't have been this. It couldn't have been that I was preaching creationism to my students or anything. It must have been that I wrote a paper when, even by his own admission, no part of the trial was actually about the paper. It was never mentioned. None of the other researchers who've written about soft tissue were fired for their findings. Not Mary Schweitzer, Jack Horner, none of the other ones. And so he's just a pathological liar in just general. And so, yeah.
The fraudulence knows no bounds with
No.
Here's my pet theory. And I know you guys are more skeptical than I am, and I appreciate that because I think somebody needs to kind of pull me back on this. I don't think he found a Triceratops. I'm sorry. I am about 80% sure he has uncovered a bison because the pictures of it, of it are bad.
I'm with you. I'm actually with you on that. The morphology doesn't.
You know what? That would
Morphology-
explain why he didn't publish the date associated with the fossil in the paper, in the original technical paper. That would make sense, actually.
Exactly. Here's a couple of facts about Armitage's paper. He didn't do a stratigraphic analysis.
You're right.
He
Yeah.
used a backwards GPS coordinate system to hide the fact that it was dug up at the Glendive Dinosaur Otis Klein Center or whatever the heck it was. So that's what
I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that.
So we don't know what the rock of that area is. They lied and said it was found on some place called the Bisach Range or something, which is a children's dig site that's not near them, not near the coordinates they gave.
I didn't even know that.
He says in the text of the paper that the horn is 22 inches long. The image he shows that it is 36 inches long, and he said to a Christian organization, like a Christian news group, that it was 48 inches long.
Oh my God!
It's
No.
Does he have a scale in with the picture too?
He's got a measuring stick,
Do
and
you
it's
have-
over 30 inches. I can give you the documentation.
Colton, do you have documentation on all of these? Because we are RJ and I have in the next book we're going to be talking about dinosaurs and soft tissue. Please, we need all of that because that's all going in.
I can also give you examples. Actually, I think I did send RJ an email on it. I have a copy here of First International Conference on Creationism. And you can thank Gary Lachelt for buying this for me and sending it to me several years ago. He's a great dude. There's a paper in here by Hugh Miller with the first batch of carbon-14 in dinosaur fossils.
Yeah.
He relists that one of the fossils. I think it's an archosaur, or no, sorry, I can't remember what it is. But one of his samples he reuses in his 2011 nonsense. And he's like, oh, well, we redated it. In 30 years, it aged 16,000. And that's not evidence for contamination?
Oh my
they're a
God.
special gang, aren't they?
So my friend
beautiful.
Dakota and I, and Dakota's been on Erica's channel with us too.
Yeah, Dakota's great.
He and I have come up with two hypotheses for this. One, this is obviously contamination and they can't do anything right. Or B, what I'm thinking about trying to publish under a pseudonym in the creationist journals is that we have discovered observable proof for accelerated nuclear decay.
That would be hilarious
So
because
funny.
I mean the rate group has been praying about it for years. So.
I have
They
actually
really have
considered
been. Really
writing under a pseudonym for Answers in Genesis, like trying to get hired, hiding all of this that I'm doing right now.
Wait, you're not
And
M. Aaron, are you?
No.
You're not M. Aaron. Okay, because I was like, because then RJ and I were gonna explode if you were. Okay.
No, I don't know who that is. But
Okay.
I've considered writing for them and then on my own personal blog doing debunkings and then coming out 10 years later saying, yeah, everything I submitted through their peer review system was complete fraud.
That's like the is it Bogosian? Is it like the Bogosian where you published the fake psychology paper or whatever?
Yep.
Yeah. That was great.
All in an effort to prove that the journal was crap. Yep.
Yeah.
You gotta burrow your way in there, Colton.
Because
I'll figure it out.
Well, see, I was asking you that because
I'm sure there's some creationist watching who's going to rat me out.
well,
So.
M. Aaron is this creationist who we have literally no information about. He's written a few baraminological papers, but there's no picture, no name, nothing. We know nothing about him, but he publishes on Answers in Genesis. So I was just wondering. I was like, if that's you, then
No,
that would be
dude,
so
I'm
funny.
barely 21. I don't think I could get hired on their payroll.
That would be so funny, though.
that would be gold. Let me tell you.
Oh, by the way, Jackson, on your next book, can you make it less than 43,000 pages?
No, make it
Probably
longer.
not. Actually, there is a limit. It's the size it is because there's an Amazon limit. It's 828 pages. We made it at 827.
Oh my god.
We actually had to drop. it was either the bibliography or the index, another letter size, another font size, to get it in by
That
one
way,
page.
they make two books.
The bibliography can always.
Well, see, we thought originally. Yeah, I mean, the bibliography is like a couple hundred pages, isn't it? But yeah, we thought, we originally thought, oh, it'll just be one book. Yeah, it'll be fine, no problem. Ooh.
The thing is too is because there's so many volumes of the Answers Research Journal, right?
Yeah.
So you can safely bet that you're going to need like 16 books. You can at least move it up by 4 times, right?
Yeah. Colton, you were reminding me about a video I did. I did 2 videos on this guy named BS, Beyond Science. He's a conspiracy theory.
He's the guy who does like the moon is hollow in a.
Yeah, lots of conspiracy theories.
Spirit science.
I'm
thinking of spirit science, I think.
Oh, well, there's a couple of them. But Beyond Science is this guy. I love that his name is BS. That's just perfect.
Wait, was he the guy who did like a video on did dinosaurs really die
yes.
out?
Yeah, I did 2 videos about it. Have you seen my videos about it? Okay. So, because it reminded me because the Glendive Fossil Museum did the whole, they dated the fossils, but all the fossils came out at like the upper end of carbon of the carbon dating, the ability of carbon dating to work. And so it's like, okay, this is far older than the Earth is, according to you guys. So not contamination.
Speaking of the carbon-14 thing, there was a 2015 paper by Brian Thomas and Vance Nelson for the Creation Research Society Quarterly. When I was 16 or 17, somewhere around there, I wasn't even graduated yet. I was actually in the middle of writing a rebuttal to their thing that I was going to submit to them and try to say, like, look, you guys got a lot of shit wrong. One of the things that happened, the late Irvin Taylor, rest his soul. I'm so sad that he died because he was one of my biggest helps on this. I sent their paper to him, and he looked at it, and he's like, what are they doing? Their Delta 13 readings for these dinosaur bones that they claim were thoroughly decontaminated are indicative of plant contamination.
Yeah, I just want to say
the one fossil they date that's two separate pieces of is like 8,000 years apart. And they say that this is indicative of normal carbon-14 readings for uncontaminated bones. I also dug further following their and I still have a draft somewhere on my computer. I just never finished it.
Again, videos. You should do videos.
I might do a video on it. Yeah. Showing like, because they say in their paper, we use the same decontamination procedure for all our fossils. I followed their index code to a book by Vance Nelson where he gives a screenshot of the report from the lab. They used a different decontamination procedure.
Oops.
And a lot of other these little errors along with major ones. And it's like, bro, how do you do this?
Oh man!
Real fast.
I might have to make either a video or a big blog post on that.
Really fast. I just want to say, at this rate, we probably didn't need to speed through that last few slides. Maybe another 45 minutes.
Yeah, I mean.
Oh my gosh, that's absolutely hilarious. Please do send us all the resources.
We're all here and supportive to help you if you want to start a channel.
Yeah. I know a little bit about technology, so I'm on the computer, so I can at least use it.
And a lot of softwares.
But do you still have to go, Eric? Are you still on?
I do. I gotta jump out of here, unfortunately. But I had a blast
having you.
Never stop learning and enjoy the randomness. We'll see you next time.
Ta, guys.
Colton, you really do need to do like YouTube video stuff. I